Rodo was a weird was a weird prelude.
What if the One Piece world is actually just a big Dyson Sphere?
A what, sorry?
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to episode number 2 of Drink Sake. Today, the very special guest, the person I most want to talk to about One Piece stuff, is my good friend Sophia. Joygirl, how's it going?
Good, thank you, Manu. Hi, Ohara. This is
It's
my
Been
lovely
a good
big
minute.
sake cup.
Ooh, that looks inappropriate for no reason. It's just matte pink. I love your devil fruit. I love your hito no mi.
Thank you. I can see yours in the corner as well, like
Thank
a
you.
little gomu gomu no mi. Yeah.
It's what keeps me hydrated during videos.
Yeah.
It's empty right
Obviously
now.
not.
I have replaced it.
Gonna be
I have replaced
pot.
it with,
No, that's
with
more
the
like
bigger version.
That's very like on theme with Elbaf, I feel.
Oh, because it's a big cup.
Well, yeah, I just feel like
Wait
it
a
looks
second.
very Viking-esque. I mean, a bit more metallic, but
So I actually
you-
got
Jeez.
this as a prop
that's very
for
cute.
my videos, and I was wearing this once,
For
and
your
it got
Halloween
so itchy.
costume.
It got so itchy. I was like, I'm gonna wear this every time I talk about Elbaf, and then I was like, no, it's terrible.
Never again.
It costs like $8 made in China. I feel like there's probably like chemicals on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wearing it for 1 minute, my head got so itchy. It's
I
really
can
bad.
imagine. And I don't know about you, but when you have like lights on you as well, it's just so hot and nah, you
Air
can't have it.
conditioning is the I think the good thing for me is in my setup, my camera actually overheats right before I start getting uncomfortable. So it's a good
Oh,
sign for me
really?
to turn
Okay,
on the
yeah,
air
you need to
conditioning.
Take
Yeah,
a
I love your
pause, have a break.
new. We talked about it a little bit before the podcast. I love your new setup. It's been like
Thank you.
that next level in professionalism. I really like it.
Yeah, well, I feel like everyone's sort of entering a different stage, right? Because I saw
Yeah.
your setup as well, and you're leaning hard
look
into
at
the
it.
One Piece.
Don't look at it. It's like I think it looks interesting enough that people just think this is legitimately what like the final like this is really like a placeholder. I do want to have like an actual set here, also for the second channel mostly, because most of the Ohara videos are now recorded on the really cool green screen I have behind me. Boom.
Oh, proper green screen.
But yeah, like for now it does the job. It does block a little bit of the audio because even though this is a fairly small room, like you can probably see it in the background.
I can see, yes.
I've plastered everything with like sound paneling. Just having this wall exposed, the echo is insane, like really crazy. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it's the layout here. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's like a shorter roof or something.
Is that your window back there, or is that just sound panels on the wall?
No, that's sound panels on the wall. So I don't know
Okay.
if you... So what my setup used to be was like when we used to record, I used to have the desk like sort of right up against there. So next to that sound paneling.
You changed the entire
And so,
room layout.
yeah, so the room's changed. So the audience won't be able to see my bed, but my bed is right there.
Okay.
Now my bed is right underneath the sound paneling.
No, I see it, yeah.
And so I've moved everything over. And I'm hoping that maybe because of the bed and all the cushions and, all the pillows and whatnot, that's absorbing the sound, so...
It definitely helps. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think my solution is probably very unprofessional. I'm just like, put sound panels everywhere and somehow it still didn't...
Yeah, it's gonna go. It's gonna...
Terrible. Yeah, maybe we should quickly also address the blue banana in the room.
Yes, the big... Well, I saw your yellow background and I immediately thought, oh, maybe are we bringing it back? What's going on here?
Is it coming back? Do you quickly want to, or do you want me to like give a quick housekeeping on that?
You can do the honors, Manu.
So what basically happened is that we kind of lost Liam at some point earlier this year, where it was like we were not able to properly reach out to him, and we didn't really know what was going on. And turns out there were like some personal things that were like occupying his time, and I think that kind of just forced this to be basically on on indefinite hiatus. And yeah, just a lot of stuff, I guess, in all of our personal lives going on.
Yeah.
I personally really wanted to. I mean, for you as well, work wise, obviously, and for me, I moved as maybe is obvious with the new background and stuff. So yeah, I personally really want, like, I missed talking about One Piece and anime and manga. So I really wanted to have like an outlet like this to chat to people. And so this is our I wanted to have you on as one of the first guests, obviously.
Oh, thank you.
Reminiscing of old
I
times.
mean, well, as Manu said, it's just a extended hiatus. It's just an in like a what's the word? My English is failing me today, but
You can say it in Korean.
it's it's probably even worse. But it's just I guess there's just there's no time frame. Who knows? Maybe we'll come back. Maybe we won't. But like
We'll drop
as
it
Manu said,
as a
I think we've
surprise.
all just
Yeah.
been super busy. Life gets hectic, and
It happens.
and
yeah.
so
I think
but
it's a little bit
thank
the
you
downside,
for-
obviously, of being an online podcast. I feel like if we were all in the same town, I think it's different, obviously, if we kind of, we have a studio and we're all like there every time. Being in different countries, in different time zones with
Yeah.
different, life settings, I would also say, all
Priorities
three of
and
us.
Yeah, it
it
is.
does pose
It's not
its
the same as
challenges.
just being able to like knock on your door and being like,
Yeah,
"Come on, it's the time."
exactly,
Um,
exactly. So,
And I think we had been getting a little slack with the recordings, if even for a longer time before this extended, very prolonged hiatus. I think our
yes.
audience had expected like us to go on even more frequent breaks than Oda, which I think at that point it's like that's, I don't know, Togashi levels.
I was about to say we've graduated from Oda
Yeah.
to Togashi level at this point, and like, but I think maybe it's actually all a really smart marketing strategy, because what we're actually
could
doing is
be.
building so much hype, and then we'll
Yeah,
like
yeah.
drop 5 episodes out of nowhere, and then we're gone again for 3 years or
Gone,
something.
just yeah. So this is Manu's little teaser. You're gonna have Liam on for your
Exactly.
next episode of your podcast.
But yeah, let's talk a little bit about One Piece. I guess by the time that this drops, it's gonna already be, new year 2025. How was the year
2025?
2000 years and 25 years? What was your experience of the year 2025 for One Piece?
My 2024, you mean?
Oh, sorry. No, 20. I'm asking you for next
2025?
year.
My
Please.
future sight.
Are we getting more
Yeah,
chapters?
you crack into
Are
that
we getting-
observation archy.
It's like that's the next level future side.
Yeah. We can. I can drop all my predictions for 2025.
We can do that too.
Shanks, all of Shanks. No. For 2024, in my head, like, time has moved so quickly. It's so hard to even put together what was in 2023 and what was in 2024.
Yeah.
But I think I did talk about this on my channel a couple of streams ago. And I think the first chapter, or the first official chapter of 2024, was Kuma's punch to Saint Saturn. So
Was it
that's a
now?
banger chapter. Yeah.
Wow.
So
okay.
it's sort of like as his flashback ended, so he returns to save Bonnie. So I had thought that his flashback must have been this year, but all of his flashback, I think, was, or most of his flashback was last year. Egghead ended?
Yeah, that's correct.
Egghead ended. Not in ways that I would have expected.
You're referring to
just everything.
everything.
Could you have predicted any of that was gonna happen? I mean,
No, I mean Egghead in general was such a, like, the arc itself was such a curveball in general. A very good one. I really loved
Yeah.
Egghead, but yeah, I mean the entire arc itself, I had no idea what was gonna happen, and
yeah,
it's really interesting. Like, maybe this is the curse of doing this weekly. In retro, like, objectively, we got so much out of Egghead. But in retrospect, you're almost like, we got a little bit here and there, but it could have been more. It was like, But
Do
no, it
you
was
mean in terms of like the reveal, like the lore reveals, or you mean in terms of like the fight
no, the
scenes,
fight scenes were
like the
really good. I think
action?
the lore reveal,
Mhm.
like we got so much lore, and like I think
Mm.
because we had week by week to like break it down in so much detail, it almost feels like being so close to the story. I almost felt like, oh, we could have gotten a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit
it's
more.
gonna go more, a little
But
bit
it
more.
was
Yeah, I
so
see.
much already.
Like a
Yeah.
silhouette of Joy Boy. Come on, a little bit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what
The
is that?
Hakinat.
What is that insane
I mean,
Haki blast
the
power?
Gorosei stuff, obviously, super
Yeah.
insane. Um, yeah, I guess the Blackbeard, Rayleigh, Kobe stuff like that all happened 2023. That
Yeah,
was like
that must have
early
been the
Egghead,
year
right?
before because it would have been like
Yeah.
almost right after Wano.
Did you have like
Yeah,
a
like
favorite
Garp,
character arc
Galaxy.
in Egghead?
Uh, I don't know. It's hard not to say Kizaru, right?
Yeah,
I think it's
that's the
pretty
correct
hard, like
answer.
pretty damn hard not to say
Yeah.
Kizaru. And I think I know there was a lot of talk on the streets about Kizaru's a bum, like, you know, he'd never saved Vegapunk and all of that. And then so for Oda to sort of come in clutch at the end of the arc when like and out of series as well, just through supplementary material, like just
Yeah.
confirming that actually Kizaru did
Uber Eats.
help Luffy. Yeah, delivered.
I loved it so much. I thought the fact that in general we've been getting, you know, so much interesting character development for all the admirals, where at this point I'm not even sure if Akainu will be a bad guy at the end of the story. I'm not sure if you had that feeling. Like
Yeah,
we've
well,
seen
he
him
had a
throughout
very-
Egghead.
Yeah. He had
Yeah.
very interesting little like comments here and there, the way that he remarked about Kuma. But the thing that's actually also gotten me really intrigued about Akainu is whether he already knows about Imu now.
It feels his
It
entire
seems like it,
his
right?
entire vibe has changed so much from like angry lava man, like kill all the pirates, to like now he's apologizing to Kizaru and empathizing with like him, you know, having to kill his friend, and he's like looking at
Yeah.
Kuma, he's like, oh, aren't we all just cogs in the machine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess to that point, it really makes you wonder about what is it then that makes Kizaru so loyal to the Marines? Like, you know, is it
Well, I think it's a like, to me it kind of felt like he was so torn, which again made sense because I feel like his unclear justice never made sense until now. Where it like in Egghead it was literally, is my justice, do I owe loyalty to my friends and the people I care about and like what I perceive to be the right thing right now, or is justice sticking with the path I've chosen in life, where he basically for me it was kind of like he chose to stay with his conviction that he joined the Marines to make a difference, to like, you know, walk the way of justice there. And even though it's now been called so much into question, for him, it's still like, okay, no, this is my role, this is what I've chosen, my path, and I will stick to it, and I won't betray it now. Was like the image I got.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit more colder and not necessarily like
Not colder. I
ideals
think
or
it broke him
values
completely.
based.
I think it broke him completely, obviously.
But what I mean is like he's not like it's not the same sort of justice, or it's not the same sort of value that Garp has, where he genuinely believes that the Marines is the right way. For Kizaru, it's like, well, this is the choice I made, so I must stand by it. Not necessarily like, I truly believe in the Marines as an institution, and therefore I must stand by it.
I mean, even with Garp, I think it's interesting because he believes in the Marines but not in the government, right? While I feel like for someone like Kizaru, again, we don't know to what degree the admirals were aware, for example, of like the Gorosei's powers.
Yeah.
And it, like, as you mentioned, it almost feels like Akainu learned about a bunch of this stuff after he became Fleet Admiral. Did Kizaru know that Saturn can turn into a massive, you know, demon spider? If he didn't, like, that would probably shake my worldview a little bit as well.
Like, what
it's like,
the fuck is going
it's
on?
like, do you know that the sketch, the one sketch where like the Nazi, he's like, are we the baddies?
Yeah.
I'm like, exactly that vibe. So I don't know. I think it's interesting because clearly Kuzan, right, gonna be an ally at the end. I think Oda's trying to sell really hard that he's actually a bad guy, which I think, I mean, I assume
No,
you
it's
also
not,
don't buy,
yeah.
right? And then we have it now with Kizaru, where he already helped Luffy, and he just needs like this little nudge almost to like switch sides. Fujitora just straight up loves Luffy at this point.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
once
Fujitora in general is like you've seen all the stuff that came out, like all the supplementary stuff, right? Like the interview that Oda did where he answered the 10 questions, and like Fujitora is like he got bought by the Navy and he's like, all right, I think
Cha-ching, I'm gonna gamble this.
So he was like, all right, well, now that I'm in this position, I'm going to free the slaves. I'm going to help. I'm going to help the people in need. And I'm going to, like, I don't care what effect this has on the world government. So.
Yeah. So we have those three characters already, like, either completely on Luffy's side or close to it. And then the fact that Akainu is now almost, like, starting to shake a little bit. I'm like, what if Akainu changes sides, then Green Bull, who's like his biggest fanboy, he's just gonna flip as well.
I don't know though, because I feel like Ryokugu's like a full-on fanatic that if Sakazuki for whatever reason flips like sides, I think Ryokugu would be like, you're not my idol anymore. Like he's a zealot. Like, you know, he goes beyond Akainu standards, which I think is, you know, saying a lot, right? It's like he's not just like a Akainu fanboy. He's a Celestial Dragon fanboy. And it's
I'm curious, because we've learned the least about him. Like even though he was in Wano, I feel like we barely got like an actual glimpse at his character so far. It almost felt like Oda was like, we have Green Bull, we gotta show something about him at this point. But I feel like we're still gonna like now that we had like the big Aokiji character arc, still not done obviously. We had now a really big character arc for Kizaru. One of my favorite in the entire I will say that one of the favorite like little character arcs in the entire story I've had so far. Especially because it's like he's such a it's not like the classic like bad guy Luffy turns him into a good guy. It's like guy in the middle who like is torn between two ideals and kind of breaks because he needs to pick a side basically. I love that so much. Yeah. But then I'm very sure obviously we're gonna get a bigger Akainu arc, like kind of find out why he was so fanatic to begin with, right? Like what happened in his childhood. So I do hope we get the same
between him and Dragon.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah, like the romance. Akainu is actually Luffy's mother.
Or both of them were in love with Luffy's mother.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Good stuff. No, there was a lot there. Do you wanna give off predictions then for 2025 already? Or we can do that at the end of the podcast. Let's do it at the end. All right,
we'll save it. So stick around.
Yeah, like stay around till the end of the podcast for that. So moving on, slowly moving from Egghead into Elbaf then, what were like the things in Egghead that like surprised you the most? Or like going out of Egghead Island, what was like stuff where you were like wow, did not expect that, did not see that coming?
Rodo was a weird prelude. That was a weird introduction to the Elbaf arc that like everyone's like, oh my god, this moose sun god, like what is going on? And it's like, it's Rodo.
I like Legos, by the way. I play Legos.
That was a weird couple of weeks, right? Because I think there were like breaks in between as well. And it's like, everything we thought was wrong. Elbaf is Legoland. And no, it's just this guy who keeps dolls and is a bit of a pervert. I do have to say, I think I actually completely forgotten about Rodo's existence. Like, it took me a while to realize like who he was. Even when we found out.
I remember like teching randomly called bad.
I heard about that.
I was like, how do you remember this character?
Of course teching. No one else.
Like Matt's the only guy who could have nailed that. My God.
For sure. I do have my own like personal speculations though that Rodo is actually going to be much more important.
I can see that.
Yeah, I think he is like, it's not just a joke, and there is a reason why Oda gave us this weird swerve at the very beginning of the arc. So I won't just completely laugh on Rodo just yet, but that was a weird, that was a very unexpected introduction to the arc.
I think it could be both. I think it could be either that Ro plays like another important role where he's like another traitor, another insider, like working with someone else, or it could be like what I could see, or what was like my gut feeling was that potentially this entire scene of the sun god, like fake sun god, whatnot. Like, could it be that it's the classic case of Oda showing, like, foreshadowing something on a bigger scale that, like, resemble, like, is there something about Elbaf, for example, like, where the model of Elbaf and the actual island of Elbaf actually have something in common, where, like, things aren't as they seem or whatever, right?
Yeah, okay. So,
Yeah.
like, I mean, which makes perfect sense about all the warnings that we've gotten about Elbaf being like, you can't stay here too long, and
Yeah.
they've got this green fairy that makes people hallucinate, and
Yeah.
well, the green fairy drink.
It's really interesting. What is your take on the fact, like, I was very taken aback the last 1 or 2 chapters where we basically found out that I think we all expected Elbaf to be this mythical magic land fantasy. Turns out it's probably the most technologically advanced nation in the Grand Line for no reason. They have like all this ancient Void Century tech still running around with like flying airships and rainbow stuff. Like this all seems to be tech, like as far as I can tell. Yeah.
Well, I guess I completely agree with you. It's like unexpected, and then when you think about it, it makes sense, right? Because we know that the ancient kingdom was so advanced. Like we saw similar technology in Skypiea, where they had like the island clouds, and they had like the I can never say it. The
pyrobloin.
Pyrobloin. Yeah.
That took me like a couple of weeks to learn to pronounce that one correctly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess in retrospect, when you think about it, it makes sense that the giants would. And I guess it's also like, they've had years to perfect, like centuries to perfect this craft, whereas everyone else's like just memories probably just got like wiped out.
Do you think that they actually like kept developing this tech, or do you feel like this is ancient? Like my head went to, this is ancient tech, like ancient kingdom tech, and because no one ever got to invade Elbaf, and they just like were almost this time capsule,
yeah,
resistant
exactly.
to anything.
Yeah,
that they just preserved this tech, and maybe they themselves don't even remember, why it works,
or how it works
Yeah.
the way that it does. Yeah, it's just like for them, it's just part of their life without having to question, like, oh, actually, this doesn't really exist anywhere else. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It also makes you wonder, like, even the island clouds themselves, like the Sky Islands, are they like, it almost feels like they're artificial as well. Almost like everything in the One Piece world could be artificial, including the Red Line and the Grand Line. Like, even the Sky Islands themselves, is that just is that technology, right? Where, I don't know.
The Red Line and the Grand Line will have to be because, like, the Grand Line must exist the way that it does because of the Red Line, right? Like, it's that, like, I would imagine that the Red Line is, even if not 100% artificial, like, has been crafted the way that it has for a particular reason.
I feel like, is there even a chance that it's natural at all?
Right? Like,
it must almost be created to some degree.
Yeah.
I think I can talk about this because by the time that this podcast drops, the video will already be out. But I've like been working on like a big theory in like multiple parts about like the time before the Void Century, like ancient One Piece history. So there's like a lot of really interesting stuff where, like, my point in the video series is that Nika and like the other gods, the 4 gods that we learn about in Skypiea, that they come down from the moon because they ran out of resources, or maybe they went ahead before the other sky races, brought the ancient weapons with them, but they were actually not weapons to begin with. They were actually like terraforming tech. Because when you think about it, like the one thing we realized, like when we talked about it in the team, like we were like, oh, what's like, why is there a sun god, a rain god, a forest god,
yeah,
and earth?
like a forest god.
It's not like fire.
Yeah.
It's not like fire, earth, wind. Like it's not like elements. Like it makes sense when you think about it in terms of like farming and colonizing,
Mm.
because
Mm-hmm.
like what do you need to grow like a giant tree, for example? You need
Yeah,
rain, earth,
you need the sun.
forest, sun,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
And then you have like obviously like the big trees. You have the Adam and Eve tree dating back 5,000
Mm-hmm.
years, the tree of knowledge on Ohara, right? So it's like, did they come down, plant these giant trees for some purpose, right?
So it's like almost like Scientology.
Yeah, and so the question is, if they had this crazy, crazy tech, they could probably build stuff like the Red Line or the Grand Line just to, artificially create these climate-controlled zones, almost like we have it in Elbaf.
Mm.
Um, there's like another really interesting thing that I found, which is, do you know about the 2 calendars in the One Piece world?
You mean, yeah, the one that Robin talked about, so it's
Yes.
not really confirmed if it's real or not.
Yeah, so there's the heavenly calendar and there's the sea circle calendar. Which to
Mm.
me, again, like this is again baked into this like theory, but to me, it almost like our current calendar, which is the sea circle calendar, which to me sounds like the Grand Line, which is the sea circle around the world, right?
Yep.
So like the sea circle calendar dates back like 1,600 or 1,500 years, so like 700 to 800 years before the Void Century. And so I'm like, was it that the Lunarians came down, colonized the One Piece world, like maybe defeated like the Titans who maybe lived there, right? Like Onigashima and like the
Mm-hmm.
Giant Sword, established their rule on the on the Red Line, which started like the heavenly calendar because they were the gods then on the Red Line.
Yeah.
And then maybe at
Uh-huh.
some point, what then became the Ancient Kingdom, which were like these islands on the Grand Line, overthrew the Lunarians on the Red Line and started the Grand Line era, thus the
I
Ancient
see.
Kingdom. And then
Okay.
it kind of like, it would
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
switch, right? Where the Lunarians defeat whoever ruled over the ocean, and then, rule shifted to the Red Line. Then, the Lunarians get overthrown. Rule goes back to the Ancient Kingdom on the Grand Line. Then rule goes back to Emu and like the world government back on the Red Line. And you kind
Mm.
of have like these literal cycles where it switches between the Red Line and the Grand Line.
I like that idea a lot. I like I especially like that link between the Lunarians and obviously it being called like the heavenly
Mm.
era because of their like celestial imagery. That's I like I'll be waiting for that video, man. I'll be
Yeah, I'm very curious what you
eagerly
think.
waiting to watch the video. I mean, I do think though I can't remember now. Did they say that the celestial dragons dispossessed the Lunarians though?
I think it was just said that they were eradicated. I feel like I'm gonna have to double check this. I don't think it was necessarily stated that it was the current world government that eradicated them.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
yeah. So I feel like there
Must
is
be
a
remembering
chance
that
that it
wrong.
was someone else, that it was potentially even like someone like Nika potentially going against.
Yeah.
Like he comes down with them, establishes this rule, then the
Mm.
Lunarians start taking slaves or something. Nika is like, what the heck are we doing, guys? Rebels against his own people.
Yeah.
Like that's something I could like. It's similar with Joy Boy, where I could like, I think it's very likely that Joy Boy was born in the Ancient Kingdom, but then actually left it to become the first pirate, kind of almost like an exile, right? So, which again, I think would, like, if the Ancient Kingdom did some messed up stuff, because one thing I also realized recently, which I kind of knew but also never put the puzzle pieces together, is that we had this big era of slavery in the One Piece world right before the Void Century happened. So I think we all kind of tend to think that, oh yeah, like things were great in the One Piece world. It was like utopia, and then your evil Emu
Yeah.
came. But no, it was like the age of slavery. Like things were super terrible before the Void Century, and I think that could be also why Vegapunk said, "Oh, I don't know who was in the right, because maybe the Ancient Kingdom also had like slaves, and the 20 Kingdoms had slaves, and it was kind of like, oh,
Is that
everyone."
a thing?
Hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you
That we had like an age of slavery, really?
Yeah. I think you can look it up on Artur's timeline also if you want to. I think he has like a quick
Alright.
summary of that. If you pull up
Yeah,
the
wow.
shout out
I
to
mean,
Artur.
it makes sense, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks to the other Ohara, the library of
Yes,
Ohara.
the Library of Ohara.
I mean, which makes sense because like One Piece and the One Piece timeline, there's a lot of like historical correlation, right? Like as in like
Mm.
our real life historical correlation. So the fact that there was this era where like slavery was so predominant doesn't surprise me, but I didn't like realize that it's just before
Right, yeah.
the void century. I mean, I completely like I think at this point, yeah, I mean, the Ancient Kingdom were definitely doing something shady because there's a reason why Vegapunk's like, oh no, I can't judge who was right or wrong, and you know, it's not
Yeah.
up to me to judge. Like maybe that has to do, or I guess most likely that has to do with the fact that the Ancient Kingdom were obviously participants in using ancient weapons as well, right? Like things that are
Mm.
literally like weapons of mass destruction that they know, like they know what they're capable of. And they're using
I
it
do
regardless.
wonder, like, one fun idea again with like the idea that potentially the ancient weapons weren't even intended to be weapons, but were
Mm.
originally like these. It was just like super advanced like tech to literally terraform the One Piece planet, and it's like, oh, we're gonna use Uranus to dig a giant hole, put a sapling in there for like the Yggdrasil tree,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna flood it a little bit with like a lot of water so the
Yeah.
seeds can, because the planet is
Yeah.
dry or something, you know. And then like all this stuff, I'm like, and then maybe was it just that this tech came down with with the Lunarians and the Sky People from the moon, and then Joy Boy potentially rediscovers this, right, and is like, oh, what like he activates it by accident, maybe even having the Nika fruit, and then like these
Where like he
weapons just
finds
wreak
Pluton
havoc.
and he realizes like this
Yeah,
is a cool, like this is gonna be my Sunny, you know,
it's a
this
cool
is
toy.
my
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
my like this is my ship, just traveling ship, and it's like actually it's a battleship. Or really
Yeah,
it's a terraforming ship where we can just like move massive pieces of like continents and pave way for like
exactly.
roads
Yeah.
or whatever, and
But
yeah,
now
yeah.
when you use it, like you don't know what it was supposed to be used
Mm.
for. Now you activate it and it suddenly just like like levels entire islands because, you know, it was meant to operate on this big scale.
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting where you kind of have this it maybe also the way, you know, it can be used as a weapon and for good purposes potentially.
Mm.
Like, can you, for example, use Pluton to just restructure, like break the red line, for example, right? Like the
Mm.
classic idea. Or you can just use it to like destroy an entire island. Alternatively, if you wanted to use it as a weapon.
Yeah, or like, you know, going back to your idea, it's a farming tool and you
Yeah,
can like it's a big excavator or something.
yeah. I mean that's literally what it. That's
Yeah.
literally what it could be. I feel. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of like. I think it's really interesting that you have all these like big like these like biblical themes. You know, the tree of
Mm.
knowledge, the Adam and Eve tree, like the big bonsai tree on Wano, right? And then like why do they have this biblical theme, and then we also have the angels that are like all, you know, like the fallen angels from the sky, like all
Mm.
this and the similarities between the Lunarians with their black wings and their fire powers to like Lucifer and whatnot. Like I think it's really
Yeah.
interesting. I feel like
So
there must be
it's
like some connection here.
like a
And there's
creation
always this
story.
really, yes, and there's always this interesting mistranslation between the ancient kingdom and the ancient weapons, where in Japanese it's
It's the
actually
Great Kingdom, right?
the Great
Yeah.
Kingdom. Yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about this. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's
Exactly.
like I don't what do you do in your videos? Because every now and then I want to call it the Great Kingdom, but I know that the Ancient Kingdom is just the name that
Mm.
it's known by now,
Yeah.
so I just feel like just got to call it
I
the
do
Ancient
call it the
Kingdom.
Ancient Kingdom
Yeah.
because that's what people call it. And if it's relevant, though, I'll point it out. I think
Yeah,
it's
fair
usually what I
enough.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have did you have a favorite video that you made in 2024?
A favorite video in 2024. Again, I don't even know the things that I've been doing in 2024. Just so much like recency bias, right?
Yeah. That's okay. That counts.
I mean, I've been doing a bit of I've been doing a bit more skits on Instagram, which we did discuss before we started
Yeah,
recording. And
those are awesome. By the way, guys,
thank
if
you.
you have Instagram, please, link is gonna be in the description. If you remember to send it to me, so no,
Yeah.
like Sophie does some really hilarious One Piece skits on Instagram, which I've been like enjoying quite a lot. I don't have
Thank you.
Instagram myself, so I always need to borrow someone's phone.
Just to check it out. Just the lurk. You're the lurking legend.
Going through it. Yeah, because if you go online, like you actually like Instagram doesn't let you actually use it properly if you don't have an account.
Yeah, I
Kind
think
of
you
like,
have to log in, and it's definitely much more of a like a handheld device thing.
for sure.
I've actually really been liking digging into Norse mythology just because we've been
Mm.
getting into Elbaf, and I love
Oh
mythology
yeah.
and I love history to begin with anyways. So I've been digging a lot into Norse mythology. I've actually done I compiled a lot of my videos just talking about funny enough, like the historical correlations between One Piece
Nice.
and our real world because yeah, I feel like you can learn a lot.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. I think also a big thing is like Oda is like he's like Oda loves mythology. He also is like a big conspiracy theorist. I feel like there's so much like wild stuff that he's
Yeah, I
like
mean,
including into One Piece, like Hollow
one of
Moon, aliens from the moon, like all
yeah,
that stuff.
I have a like an entire video about Atlantis,
Mm.
and
Oh,
how
absolutely.
yeah, the ancient
Yeah,
kingdom, it's like the Atlantis story because the whole world flooded, which was
and the
that was
island
a
got lost. Yeah,
2024 reveal, right? The whole world
for
flooding.
that was a. I think the
Yeah,
flooding was a big reveal.
yeah, that
Yeah,
was a 2024 reveal. Big one for sure. Um and yeah, it like took me a while to sort of put the pieces together going like Oda has definitely been reading into Atlantis, which is a,
oh,
huge
and like
conspiracy.
the oh yeah, and like all the like ancient lost civilization stuff for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
Gotta
like
reread
how
Plato now, see if
yeah.
there's like One Piece parallel. I was like, is there something in the what is it the cave, like Plato's cave? Do you know
Mm,
the allegory? Yeah, like
yeah.
where like in case people don't know it, like the allegory that, or people say at least it's an allegory that Plato gives is that imagine you have people sitting in a cave, they face a wall, and then there's people behind them who like in front of the fire put like shadows on the wall, and the people captured in this cave think that that's reality until like one day one of the people breaks out, leaves the cave, and finds out that the real world is completely different.
Mm.
And so I do wonder if there's like something like this in the One Piece world too. Like we already have it to a certain degree where like we all think that this is the reality of the One Piece world, but turns out things are actually completely different. And we all already had that a little bit with the oh yeah, this is a post-apocalyptic world basically with like ancient tech that like got lost and everything.
Yeah, like we were light years ahead
Yeah,
centuries
yeah.
ago, and yeah, Vegapunk's actually not the most like smartest guy. There were people much
Just
smarter than he was.
yeah, he's just like digging up the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? Is there
Was
a favorite
there?
video of
Oh,
2024?
I think my favorite video that we published was the pixel art video, which
Oh,
sadly
that
didn't
was
do
so
too
much
well,
fun. Isn't that
but that was
always the
really good.
case?
It is always the case, but I
But
think that was just a
I
passion
thoroughly enjoyed
project,
it.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, that was really fun. And then yeah, I think I mean, again, recency bias. I feel like this like big theory about like the what happened before the Void Century, kind of the One Piece timeline. That's been really fun.
Mm.
Spending like a lot of weeks recently, like looking into that and rereading stuff. That has been fun.
It's
I'm like
always
I'm
fun that
really curious. Oh yeah, go for it.
no,
Yeah.
no, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just like I was gonna switch topic completely. So if you had like
I
something
was
to say,
just saying, it's always fun to dive into something that sort of makes you reread things that you wouldn't have gone back to otherwise. Because
yeah,
you're forced to go down this deep rabbit hole and you're like, whoa, like, how did I never realize that before? Like, that's what I was saying about the
yeah,
whole Rodor stuff. It was only like after we first met Loki properly that I like
mm.
went back to like dig through the chapters where we first saw Loki being mentioned and stuff, and I found out that Loki and Rodo were actually introduced together. Like they were born in the same year. And it's like, okay, Oda, so you've actually planned Rodo a lot more than I realized, and which is why I was like, okay,
Interesting.
maybe Rodo is actually going to be a lot more important.
That is really interesting. Okay. Um. Damn. Yeah. That I feel like it's always really fascinating when you go back and realize. I mean, again, Skypiea the best example, but
Yeah.
also Fishman Island. Like so many
Mm.
arcs where you're like, oh, that stuff was actually important. Like take the Louis Arnott stuff that like goes
Yeah,
back to what
huge.
Little Garden, and you're like, oh, that just
Yeah,
vanished, and suddenly he pulls it out again for
yeah,
no
yeah.
reason.
I saw you had
Yeah,
a Bragman video out because I did a
I
Bragman video
did.
too, and it's like, yeah, like this
Oh,
little
nice.
book that, we probably had like forgotten about. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
it's just like a nice part of the world building, and it's like, wait a second.
it's really like it might actually just be like I think I'm not sure what you talked about in your video. Like the point of mine was a little bit to say like, hey, could it be that the Bragman, like, is this like this tradition that dates back to the Void Century, where you have this tradition of people exploring the One Piece world and like rediscovering things, passing on this knowledge, and kind of in the end, like, it leads from like, people like Nolan into people
Mm.
like Arnott, or like there's this weird physicist Willie
Yeah,
Garneau.
yeah.
Yeah, like these people into
Cal.
potentially the scholars of Ohara, and like all these people pass on little pieces of knowledge to finally ensure that basically Luffy in the end can
Mm.
return as Joy Boy, or return as Nika, um, and all these like that's the reason why the Library of Ohara made
Exists.
sure that like this book would exist. Like specifically, they mentioned this book, right?
Yeah.
Like Bragman as one of the books there, and why the world government did like such a put so much effort into discrediting like all the
Mm.
stories in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like naming it like a
yeah.
fictional novel. Makes you think.
One interesting thing that I didn't put into that video just because it didn't really fit in, but I was like, it's really interesting. Dragon clearly must know quite a lot, right?
And
Because
yet also not. Because like he was surprised about Imu, right? Like if anything, Ivankov knew more about Imu than Dragon did.
mm, I feel like, but I feel like wouldn't he still know quite a lot about the like at least what happened in the past, even if he doesn't know about Emu, because he was friends with like. So this is a long story short. I'm like trying to build to the theory. I'm not sure if you heard of this, that Robin is Luffy's half sister.
Okay,
Have you heard this idea
I
before?
haven't read into the full theory, but yes, I am aware of this idea.
I mean, it's more tidbits and stuff, but the idea that Dragon clearly was really close friends with the people of Ohara, probably ran
Mm.
into people like Clover.
Hmm.
It
Yeah,
would make a
well,
lot of
they met,
sense why
right?
he would be, why Ohara would be such an incident. Like if he thought that he lost a child there, like that would be a big impetus for him, I guess, to like go against the world government, and it would also explain why he why he says like he's so happy that he finally found Robin when
Like
they
why he
meet
was
during
looking
the
for her, because
time skip.
yeah,
Yeah,
the revolutionaries say that they've been looking for her. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Okay, I
So
see.
I don't know. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it if
And
that
look,
were to be the case.
Robin pre-time skip definitely looks more like Dragon.
For
Like they've
sure,
got
for
the darker
sure.
skin, like they've got
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. I see. They've got that whole like Che Guevara thing going on.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
buy
yeah.
it.
And you could kind of like, I mean, she has the black hair. Olvia has the white
Yeah,
hair.
yeah.
Yeah, got some strong genes there. I don't know. I
Mm.
think I would not be mad if it was revealed that Robin was actually Luffy's older sister.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad either.
Yeah,
It would be very, very cute that they found each other and that
yeah.
Luffy like gave her a
Taking care of his
second,
sister.
then like gave her a second purpose in life, and
Yeah.
like she thought she had lost her entire family, but like she actually has some. I mean, look, I was a wreck after chapter 1133. I was like I was honestly
It was
like
I was
I was
crying
a
really hard
wreck.
too.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
um
Uh,
that has to be one of the I like, and the thing is chapter 1132 was also so fantastic because it was our first proper look at Elbaf, right? And I was actually like brought to tears looking at just the Elbathian landscape because I thought it was like actually just so beautiful. And I was,
right.
the fact that it's taken us decades to get to this island that we've all been waiting for, like probably the most like highly anticipated island. And then like 1133 comes and I was like just like bawling.
Yeah, no, I was not prepared for that either. I'm also like, it made me double sad because like, and not sure if you agree with this. I kind of feel like Saul has like really bad death flags on his on
Oh,
him, and
really?
then
I don't know.
don't you think so?
I don't know. I think he
I
could
feel like
live.
he knows too much, and also Oda has been like like twice he was like, oh, he's fallen down. It's like, it's just a joke, but like, is
I
it?
don't
Is
know
it though?
because I I think if anything, Oda is really living up to his name that he cannot let anyone die. Like Kuma
Uh,
could have been left dead and it could have been like a really bittersweet story for him,
yeah,
right? But like all throughout the end of Egghead, like you still see that he's actually alive and like
yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah.
leaving Egghead and it's like actually, you know what? He's like the guy's still smiling. He's still conscious. Like we thought all of the satellites died and then we see that
Yeah,
they're all
Vegapunk's
on the
dead.
like yeah, all of like the Vegapunks have come back together and they're alive. So it's like I don't know. I
Mm.
feel like I guess Saturn and the Stella died, but like Saturn's a bad guy, so I guess we don't really care about him. And I don't know.
Yeah,
Vegapunk's the really only one that maybe
yeah.
maybe Oda's
Um,
proven us wrong with. But
I wouldn't be super sure about that either. Yeah. So,
I mean, yeah. Well, the satellites came back to life, so
yeah,
true.
yeah. I don't know. I feel like the thing with the fake out deaths is like I feel like some of them. I think like Saul was. I had no problem with that at all because I felt like it was always fairly likely that he was alive. You know, with Aokiji freezing him inside the
Mm,
flames, felt like more like he was protecting him
yeah,
anyways,
pulling a
right?
Kizaru. Yeah,
Um,
saving a
I mean the
friend.
death. Yeah, I feel like if this is the biggest like problem people have with One Piece, I feel like that's a good problem to have that not enough people are dying. But I mean, to be fair, I'm like the last person who's like, oh, if we had some actual like consequential deaths of big characters, that would probably raise the stakes quite a bit for the
Mm,
final. But I think the fact that people need to accept, I think, is that's just not the story or not the way that Oda wants to write his story.
yeah.
Like obviously he could be like, oh, no one is safe, a straw hat dies here, like this character dies here, and like Game of Thrones style,
Yeah.
like
He's the
you thought he was
reverse
one of the
George
main
R. R.
characters.
Martin.
Yeah, basically he's like, the more main character you are, the safer you are.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's like a different way of like approaching
Mm.
like the story overall, I think, which I don't mind.
Yeah,
um
and you know, none of
yeah,
us would have had the cathartic release that we got in chapter 1133, 34, 33,
exactly.
if Saul had actually died.
Yeah,
I just think that, like, I think he would be torturing us if we got that reunion with Saul
and
only
then
for
killed
Saul
him.
to die anyways. Like, that would be a really
Tough.
evil, mean thing to have done. And I don't think that's Oda. Like, that is a George R. R. Martin pull, and I'm not so sure that's
Yeah.
an Oda thing to do.
Did you see the interview that Iñaki the live action Luffy did with Oda?
I haven't yet, but I saw it come up, and then I haven't had the time to watch it yet.
So I watched it earlier today and I was like, I think I've never heard Oda's voice before.
Yeah, you're
And I
right.
was like, this is not what I expected
Oh,
at
really?
all. He sounds like a really like ready to retire 65-year-old.
Oh,
Like
really?
60
Oh, no, don't say that. That makes me
I'm like, oh
sad.
no. I was like, no, he's really funny clearly and like has a lot of
Yeah.
character to it. But like I don't know, I was because we always see this one photo of him being like in his 20s, right? So
Yeah.
it took me really off guard, I will say.
Oh, gosh. Man, that makes me concerned. We've had
No,
we've had more and more
no, he
breaks
didn't
recently.
he didn't sound like sick or anything, but
Yeah,
just
sure.
old.
Yeah, like
Like
just
for lack of
older
a
than
better term.
we. Yeah, I guess
Like I was like, oh, this is a man. I don't know how old Oda actually is, but I'm like, oh, this is a man like over 50. Like it like kind of like sank in. Is he
yeah,
over? He must be probably over 50 at this point. Yeah.
yeah. You're right. He must be. Because he was around like
He was like early 20s, right, when he started writing
yeah
One
when it was
Piece,
like
I
in the
think.
90s. So you're right. In
Yeah.
my head, I just figured he's like a 40 years.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Like
you're right. It
maybe
might be
late. Okay,
close to.
let me look this up. Okay.
Let's fact
Let's
check
let's
this.
let's let's fact check for
Yeah,
our
let's
audience
not.
here.
I think for me, Oda feels almost like larger than life.
Oh, he's 49.
Okay, so 49, but we also know that he doesn't live like the healthiest lifestyle.
Yeah,
Doesn't
yeah,
get a
that's
lot of
true.
breaks, like a chain smoker, from what I hear. Um,
Is he actually?
I don't know if it's a chain smoker, but I did hear that he
He
does.
smokes.
He is a he is a
That would
smoker.
explain the voice potentially, because it was
Okay.
like very like raspy, kind of
And
like deep
like,
voice. Yeah.
Japanese culture must be like drinking every week.
Yeah, it's probably not the healthiest. Yeah.
um
Um, is like in general is that's something I like to hear your thoughts about, because I am insanely excited for the next season of the live action, and I love that Oda is really involved into all of these projects, but I do feel like the manga has been suffering under
yeah.
him doing so much stuff, and I would rather keep like a more or less consistent schedule on the manga and make sure that he finishes his story, rather than like burning himself out with other projects if he doesn't act like clearly. If it didn't affect his work at all writing the story, I would be like, fantastic, let's
Go
keep
for
doing
it.
it.
Mm.
But it does feel like it is clearly impact, like the 2 week break he took, like was it November, I think, where like he was like, oh, I just came back from South Africa, and I'm just like,
Mm.
up as you would be, exhausted,
Mm.
like jet lag, and like overlooking filming, and like trying to like perfect everything there. um is that something you're a little bit worried about, or not so much?
I mean, not so much in the sense that, like, because I don't get to have the manga.
Mm,
I I actually wish that like Oda would just take extended breaks. And I wouldn't mind it if he did
mm.
move to even like a monthly schedule. Like it would suck from like a obviously a fan point because I want to read like
I
so
think I
frequently, but at the same time, like
mm,
I'm
I
all for
do agree. I will say I feel like with the monthly schedule, like you can calculate that is 12
12. Yeah, it
chapters
is 12
a
chapters.
year.
We
One Piece
wouldn't finish.
is never ending if he does it once a month. Because even for Elbaf, I feel like we'll be here like a good 50 to 80 to 100 chapters, right?
You reckon?
Um, yeah, it's gonna be at least a medium-sized arc, I
I
think.
would. How many chapters was Egghead?
Like 50,
Like 50?
maybe?
I could see it getting to like the 50-ish, 60 chapters. I'm not too sure about like 100.
I think it's gonna be longer than Egghead for sure, because it's like one of these big arcs that has been foreshadowed with Wano, right? Like the country of the giants.
Yeah,
Um,
but
I would be
like,
very surprised if it was less than 70.
but Oda's already like set a time limit on himself. Like, and obviously for the world of Elbaf as well, but it was him saying like, we can't stay at Elbaf for too long for whatever reason. So
You
the
think he
Straw
wrote
Hats
that
have got
into
to
the
like
story
yeet it out of
because he
there.
was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
guys, we don't have time. We need to leave
Yeah,
Elbaf
we need
soon.
to. We've got to. We're like time's ticking. Um, I
I think
also
there's too
think
much to
that
explore in Elbaf. I
that is
think,
true. Like especially now that we know
yeah,
that there's this entire like heavenly realm, and it's like
Heaven
who
Realm,
the hell is living in the
Underworlds,
heavenly realm?
Loki, yeah.
Um,
The
like
elves.
yes,
I want elves in One Piece.
like a like a bigger version of the Tontata tribe. I
Well,
could,
they're the dwarves, right?
yeah, but they're like
So I did
elfish.
because you're also like into Norse mythology, so you have obviously the
Mm,
9 realms of Yggdrasil,
yeah.
and then like my idea was like maybe we have the 9 realms there too. Like so far we have the 3 realms, but then also obviously like big chunks could be underwater of like what used to be Elbaf, right?
Mm,
So like I was always curious that because we do know the Tontata and the Minks both like they're not native to where they live right now. Like we
yeah.
know that both of them needed to leave their home island. So I was like, what if all these mythical
Mm,
races originated on Elbaf and
from
then their home
Yggdrasil.
worlds flooded?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the could be.
I'd buy it.
Mm.
Makes sense. I'm not too familiar with every one of the 9 realms, but like I think Midgard
So
would be
they're
sort of the land that they're living on, right?
yeah.
Because it's the land of the
They do have
giants. So
like they have like 2 types of elves, like light elves and I think like forest
yeah, the
elves.
dark elves that are supposed to be
Yeah.
a bit more evil, I
Yeah. Then
think.
there's like regular giants, fire giants, dwarfs. There's like a lot of like different stuff
Yeah.
like that's going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, it could
I'd be
happen.
down for like some new stuff. Could also of course just be like where Burka used to be potentially, and we get some Uruj Enel
You mean
action
like
potentially
up?
in the heaven layer. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, well,
Long story
because
short, I feel like even if like again, like if you calculate like 12 chapters, like we still need like at least we need to still find the One
yeah,
Piece. We need to
sure,
have
we
like
need to
all these big battles. We still probably
yeah.
need at least like a decent chunk of Void Century flashback, right?
Mm.
Like potentially Lodestar, you know. I'm
I
like,
heard
ooh,
that Elbaf might not have actually been planned. I haven't looked into it deeply, but
really?
I do know Liam actually has a video out on this. Apparently
Oh,
there is a universe where Oda was actually not gonna take us to Elbaf, but he did.
interesting.
So,
Where's that? What is that based on?
um, like I said, I have
Sauce. Sauce.
I
I made it
will
the fuck
I will have to let you
up.
know. Source is the Grand Line Review. um,
Okay.
someone's
I mean,
mentioned
to
it
me, it
during
felt
like one
like
of my
one of these
streams. So
arcs that has basically been guaranteed ever
yeah,
since we met the
almost
Giants for the
yeah,
first time.
like even
But I'm like
before the
very,
Wano. Yeah,
if there is like some contrary evidence to that, I'm like super curious to hear that, of course. That is
I mean, like that
fascinating.
being said, I completely agree that it's going to be like it's not gonna be a one of those short arcs that we've been getting used to, where we have like a short arc, long arc, short arc, long arc,
Mm.
like a Zoe level arc. Especially because that's what we were expecting of Egghead, and then
I mean, I
Egghead
feel like
turned out to
probably
be
Egghead was. I would guess that Egghead was supposed to be that, and it just kind of
just kind
like
of
it
like
often does with
blown.
Oda, blew up a little bit.
Mm.
Because I mean, like, if we're being honest, you could have probably condensed Vegapunk's speech into like a chapter or two if we really would have wanted to.
Instead
For
of having like a
example,
panel here, a
12
panel there,
chapters of it,
panel
yeah.
here, yeah. Um,
So
but I think Egghead got extended because of all the Gorosei showing up, right?
yeah, for
Like
sure.
that would have extended it by
Um,
at least half a year. Um, I guess like that
I
could
think
mean
the
that.
thing is, yeah, we're technically already on like a like bi-weekly schedule at this point, where
Mm,
like realistically we're getting 2 chapters a month, right, on average.
yeah,
At least last like 2024. So I think going down even more would feel pretty. Again, I think that's obviously preferable to Oda just being sick and not being able to do anything.
yeah,
But I do feel like you do need to have a certain amount of progress, especially because One Piece is a story that takes its liberties and takes its time with stuff. So I feel like if you went down to once a month, you'd probably need to start speeding up events, and that would then feel weird based on everything that has come before.
yeah. It would change the dynamic a lot. What if it came out like? What if it was longer chapters?
Like it was like 40 pages once a month.
Yeah, just like once a month, it was just like a long, long ass chapter. Like lots of shit happens.
But then what's
Yeah,
the
it would.
difference?
It's still like I guess. Yeah, it's
I feel
lots
like
of
in that
work.
case, I would rather have 4 shorter chapters of like 8 pages rather than
Oh, really? Okay, I
yeah.
see.
I'd rather have my weekly
Yeah,
like dose of
dose
crack of
and
One Piece
yeah,
crack. Yeah.
I see that argument as well. I guess it goes to the point that like I'm loving it as a One Piece fan, that there are just like everywhere you look there's something One Piece related, right? Like
Yeah.
Fishman Island's getting reanimated. The Egghead
Your
Island
favorite arc.
animation has been pretty good. Like season 2 of the One Piece live action, where the One Piece live action
Mm,
was actually like really, really good, and then we're getting a
yeah.
new animation, and then now there's even talks of a movie. So like
Yeah,
from a
that'd be
fan
awesome.
aspect, it's like, oh my god, I'm just like living in the best timeline ever. And at the same time, it's like maybe certain things could have waited until like One Piece ends.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's a good point. But then again, maybe they were like, well, we're not gonna wait another 20 years.
Yeah,
we
like
want
who knows when it's gonna finish.
to do some stuff now. It's difficult. I'm like, as a fan and as a content creator, like torn in the middle. Like as a fan, I want to have more chapters, but at the same time, I do
Mm,
want to prioritize Oda's health. And as a content creator, like if we have like stretches of like 2, 3, 4 weeks without a chapter, it like gets really tough to
yeah.
keep people's interest, and like there's not that much to talk about, maybe. But also, if Oda goes too fast, then we're gonna run out of stories soon, which obviously also no one wants. So it's a bit of a like, I guess like a can't have your cake and eat it too situation. I
I
guess.
think so. I think there is no right answer. Because, like,
Yeah.
what's the alternative as well? Like, the One Piece live action goes ahead, but with no Oda input. It's like, no, you
Yeah.
don't want something like
Yeah.
that where.
Yeah, I think the perfect world would probably just be 4 chapters a month, one every week, and we get everything, and Oda's healthy, and which we're probably still gonna
He's
get.
just a
I do
superhuman.
sometimes wonder, like, and I have no detailed info on this. I just know in my head somewhere, I know I saw somewhere, read somewhere, heard somewhere that Oda is the type of person that doesn't love outsourcing stuff to his assistants. Like,
Right.
I think he's like the type, and I can't quote the source for this either. It's just like something that lives in my head somewhere, rent free. That Oda is like very like, most of the stuff I do want to draw myself, and I don't love, he doesn't love outsourcing too much. Where I'm like, maybe if you did let, gave more creative direction and storyboarding, and took care of the important things, but other stuff you just like left to your assistants, would
Mm.
that like make the process easier also for him?
I think I've
I don't
heard
know.
something similar as well, that I think a lot of his assistants do some of the background, like a little bit more of like the
Mm.
structural, like the landscape type things, but like people's faces, like characters, like Oda really likes doing himself. And then at the same time though, right, as a One Piece fan, like just knowing how much detail Oda does actually put into his panels, and because he adds in so many little like hints here and there, it's like we can't not have him draw his art himself. And then also, I guess, as a mangaka, it's like part of your passion as a mangaka is, of course, the story you want to tell, but part of your passion is also like drawing, right? Like it is your art form. Um, and so I don't know. And it's like, would we have liked it if One Piece was a more contained story that, would have been like faster to have told? It's like, no, because we
No,
love that we've
probably
had
not.
like 20,
Yeah,
like almost 30 years of getting this
yeah.
story.
And I think it like, I feel like if you polled people, I would expect that most people would be like, I'd rather have it for another 20 years than like have
Mm.
it end. Like, I feel like people almost don't want to know the ending to a certain degree. I sometimes feel where it's like, I'd rather want to keep exploring this world and the mysteries, like rather than find like if I could push a button and like find out what the One Piece is tomorrow and just like end things. I'm like, I think no one would push. Or okay, I'm not sure if
No.
no one is the right answer. I think most people would not push it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I sit in the like a little bit more of a tempered middle. I would probably say like 5 to 7 years. I think that is
You
a
think it's
much
gonna
more.
end, or you think you'd like it to end?
Well, like it's not like that because like I want it to end because I want my life back, please. It's not in that sort of sense. It's more just like
But
a
actually,
it's more just like I think that's a reasonable length that I could see the story being wrapped up, and then that doesn't mean like the One Piece world disappears, right? Like I think the beauty of the
no,
One Piece
right.
world is that it's so vast. There's
You
so
can
like
always
there's such a
keep,
long
yeah.
history that we can have like if Oda wanted to, we could have a spin-off story just exploring Roger's journey. Like we could have a spin-off story
Joy
just
Boy.
exploring Nika. Exactly, like Joy Boy. Like
Yeah.
it could even be like a random side character that's not like a pivotal role. Like I wouldn't
Fluffy.
mind watching an entire thing about Senor Pink, and like getting that whole thing teased out. So
Nice.
I think I think but in terms of like actually finding out like what the hell is the One Piece, like what actually
Mm.
went down between the Ancient Kingdom and Joy Boy and like, the 20 Kingdoms and stuff. It feels like if it went on, like if we still didn't know for like 20 years, it would be like, come on.
I think I see your point. I like my counter or like counter argument. I'm not sort of like the reason why I feel like it's gonna be another 10 years is like I'm just basing this off of the pacing up to now, but obviously if Oda decided to speed things up, like that could always like make things faster. I don't think it's gonna be less than 4 years, is what
No.
I would say.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like if like again, if we take with all the mystery still open and all the things that still need to happen, you know, like Shanks stuff, Blackbeard stuff, Dragon stuff, Emu stuff, World Government stuff, finding Love Tale, everyone going to Love Tale, you know, finishing Elbaf first of all, you know, it just started, right? Like, just if we look back at how the trend in One Piece has not been, oh yeah, the arcs have been getting shorter and shorter. Oda is really rushing. It's exactly the opposite. Like arcs have just been getting longer and longer. So like looking at that trend, it's like it feels really hard to imagine this ending in 5-6 years, unless Oda is really like, okay, people we're really picking up the pace here. Like chapter after chapter after chapter, we're having reveal after reveal and fight, and we're wrapping up the fights and we're going to the next place. Like it would almost need to like start increasing in pacing.
I guess the counter to that would be
counter.
Because that's the counter to your counter is that because we are now in Elbaf and knowing the, you know, Norse lore, because we're gonna get some sort of Ragnarok. Like if Ragnarok is the, you know, the battle to end all battles, then it could be the case that it's like everything speeds up from here and we do really like enter the thick of the end game. Like I know we've sort of been in the end game for a while, but like
allegedly at least.
Yeah.
It's like it's the final saga. But, sure, yeah.
But the final saga,
I think that's a fair
point.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I feel like Ragnarok could be either, honestly. It could be an Elbaf, more local event, or it could be, as you say, like actually referring to, you know, the world's flooding again, kind of what we discussed earlier. I'd be okay with both. The thing with statements like I've grown to like mistrust Oda a little bit with these things. Where it's like, even if Ragnarok was like, oh my god, the world's starting to flood, I could like... Even if that happened suddenly in Elbaf and it's like a worldwide thing, I would still probably still like not speed things up.
You know what's really made me like skeptical of some of these narrations was the narration that we got at Egghead when we were like, the resolution to the Egghead incident is gonna like blow like everyone's mind.
Oh yeah, the Egghead incident.
And the entire time people were like, no, it's just Vegapunk's message. And I was like, okay, yes, but Vegapunk's message isn't a resolution, so there must be something else happening. And then come the end of Egghead, and it's like, oh, okay, so it really was Vegapunk's message. Okay. But it wasn't I don't know if that you could count it as a resolution, but okay, I see where this is going. So I do see where you're coming from, where it's like, you know, we've been, and I guess Ragnarok as well has really only been mentioned, maybe not even by name in the chapter.
I don't think it has it been name dropped in itself? I don't think so.
I think
the only thing that came close to it was Loki saying he wants to destroy the world. Or
he's gonna bring about the end of the world.
Yeah.
And like how he's the cursed prince because he's also like in that vein. But I think Ragnarok is obviously something that we as fans are like imposing, right? So for me to say like, because we're gonna get Ragnarok at the end of Elbaf, it's like, well, no, like we haven't actually been told that we're gonna get Ragnarok. So there's also that as well. But in the case that we do, because this is Elbaf and like there's the whole arc has been like already so steeped in Norse mythology. Even with Loki saying he's going to bring about the end of the world, feels like...
I think it's like, it's okay. So for context, we're recording this at a point where Sophie has not read chapter 1134. So I can't say too much without spoiling her. But I will say I have been very minor spoiler, and apologies if that ruins something for you. I've been like a big fan of the idea ever since we got Loki introduced, that he's probably not that bad of a guy, because Luffy, like for me, it was very sus that Luffy like heard his voice, he was interested, wanted to help him, made that promise, stood on top of Loki, and Luffy is the one person who always knows when people are like actually like evil or have bad intentions. So that was for me like a big red flag that Loki might have been framed or something. And there is like it's not like the chapter is like, oh, Loki's 100% a good guy, but there is more evidence pointing into the direction that he's like not a
That
bad
he
dude.
is a good guy. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I've also been on that same wavelength. And
Mm.
even after Loki was introduced as this so-called villain at Elbaf, like immediately the stuff that I couldn't sort of reconcile was that like we know that the Elbathians at one point actually loved Loki, right? Like they were willing to get over their
know
grudge.
that because he was always known as the cursed prince, right? Like do we actually know that?
But like they were willing to get over their grudge against Big Mom, who killed one of their heroes because he was going to marry her daughter. Like if they were like, you're a villain, then
or maybe they were like, yeah, Big Mom, yeah. You marry Loki and get him to Whole Cake Island, like we're good.
Yeah, okay, like he's gonna
fuck
shit up.
He's your problem.
Joke's on you. He's gonna ruin your kingdom.
I think one thing I could see happening is that, like, one thing I've wondered is, did Loki get framed for killing the king because potentially all the other, like, warring, you know, like, tribes in Elbaf actually didn't want to have, like, a more peaceful king or something, and they killed him, blamed it on Loki.
Back?
Yeah. Or was it that, yes, Loki did kill King Harold, but it turns out that he was actually like kind of like a Game of Thrones situation, like the Jaime Lannister Kingslayer situation, where like he was actually kind of a messed up dude potentially.
So I was like leaning. I like your first idea about like some of the giants actually not liking the fact that they're no longer this like rough and tumble wall and Elbaf now. But what I was actually leaning towards was a little bit more similar to your second idea. But instead of King Harold being like a dick or being like a mad king or whatever, I was thinking more along the lines that so Loki was like has always been known as a cursed prince because people have always said that he's going to bring about the end of the world, but like that's sort of like a very similar prophecy / curse that's been told about Luffy, right, and Fishman Island, whereas we know that like whatever Luffy does like might do something bad for Fishman Island, but not really in the grand scheme of things. It's going to be something that's actually good. And so because we also know that the world as it is right now is corrupt and it actually does need to end. And like Luffy also needs to be a part of that. Yeah. Loki like saw his curse as more of a prophecy that has to be fulfilled. Whereas like the rest of Elbaf is like, no, that's a curse. And so I thought that in order for him to like, if in his eyes, Loki would have thought, well, in order for me to like fulfill my prophecy, I need to get this devil fruit. And whereas King Harold was like, no, if we give you this devil fruit, then you're going to bring about the doom. So we're not going to give it to you. And then one of the first things we were introduced to about Elbaf was like through Dory and Broggy and their like 100-year fight. And the whole reason why they were having that 100-year fight was because they said like the Elbathian code is that if there's an argument that they can't settle, then we're going to fight and then the gods decide. And so my thought was maybe King Harold and Prince Loki decided they're going to have a fight and let the gods decide. And so the fact that Loki won is actually that he was right, but maybe maybe he did something that was dishonorable during the fight that made him won, and that's why the Elbathians have turned on him. Or maybe people don't realize that they were actually following the Elbathian code and just think that Loki murdered him. So I feel like that was where I was going.
I like this idea quite a lot. I feel like that makes a lot of sense, and I think it also fits in nicely with like him, Loki calling himself the sun god. It reminds me a lot of Kaido originally thinking that he could be Joy Boy, where like it's almost like he wants to make this, like Kaido wanted to bring this big war to the world to end the world, right? And and then we found out, oh, he like probably wanted to become Joy Boy and, you know, break the world to make it anew.
Yeah.
So I feel like that fits Loki's vibe really well, where like that was kind of the idea I had too, where it's almost like break the system to make a new system in a lot of ways, which
especially
I think
if they understand like what sun god means because of the fact that it's an actual deity that they know of.
Yes, exactly. So I could see that like very well being the case. I think that's super interesting. And again, one thing that I speculate about, like I'm not sure if you saw that video I made about like breaking down the Japanese and like being sake and like the
This is
flooding
the
and
one where you
stuff.
play guitar.
No, that's like a very old
Oh.
video, but I'm happy that you remember that one. That's a very old video. No, it's like it's from this year. Like I
Oh,
retranslated
actually,
it and like it,
I did see that.
yeah,
Yes.
and like like the idea was kind of that being sake is potentially Joy Boy's story, and that the first like my argument was that based on the song, it was not that the sea levels rose 200 meters at once, but it happened like twice in like 100-meter increments, and the first time it happened might have been Joy Boy using the ancient weapon either by accident or and
Mm.
that's potentially why he needed to become a pirate, where because he got like almost he found the ancient weapon, used it, the world flooded, and he like people were like, get the hell out of here, like what the
Yeah.
and
Exiled.
so it could be that the joke in the end on Laugh Tale is that in order to change the world, you kind of need to flood the world and use the ancient weapons. Like you can choose to either leave things as they are, leave the
Mm.
system as it is, and save the world, or you just flood everything. Like you need to like almost again the same thing. You need to break everything first before it can be remade.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that could be like the choice that Luffy needs to make at the end, and where like Roger and Rayleigh were like, maybe you guys will have a different conclusion than us, because we like
Mm.
our conclusion was like either leave things as they are or we like destroy everything, and we don't want to do either. And maybe they're like, hey, maybe you have a third answer that we guys didn't come up with.
That's interesting.
Mm.
Because I've always liked that line, obviously from Rayleigh, that you guys could have a different conclusion.
Yeah.
I like that idea about like Joy Boy having done it first, and that's actually what resulted in it being a pirate. It's almost like out of necessity as well. Like the world got flooded, so it's like, well, I have to start traveling by sea now.
I was so yes, exactly. Maybe there were no pirates because there was just not that much water before
Yeah.
that in the One Piece world. Also, I was so intrigued by seeing Rayleigh and Shanks just drinking themselves into unconsciousness while Vegapunk's speech was running.
Yeah, both of them.
Like I talked about this in the previous podcast with Tekken 2, I think, but I almost have the feeling the more we get to know that like that scene of Roger and his crew laughing, that it was actually this almost like we're all super fucked kind of laugh, like oh my god, like tragic
Like the world
laughter.
is gonna end.
Like yeah, like this is serious, like oh, this is the truth, this is messed up, and they're kind of like laughing because they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, sort of those situations where it's like the only thing you can do is
Is do a
laugh.
laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I like again seeing Rayleigh just and Shanks, both of them drinking
Mm.
themselves under the table while like Vegapunk shares some of these facts. I'm like, like this must be like so. And like Vegapunk almost calls Rayleigh out, right? He's like, oh, like why
Yeah,
didn't
why
Roger?
didn't you do anything?
Why didn't they say
Yeah.
anything? And his
Mm.
reaction is like, if you guys like if you
Knew,
guys knew
yeah.
what we knew, it's like, it's just. So I don't know. That felt like a really dark, powerful moment to me,
Wow, that's
which kind
a-
of made me question that conclusion a little bit.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go back to that because like you read it in such a like
Mhm.
interesting way. You read like interpret it so differently than I did. Like
Oh, how
I
did
remember.
you interpret it?
I mean, when I saw that, I saw it more as like Rayleigh and Shanks like finally feel this relief of like I can pass it on to a new
Oh,
generation now. Like it's not
interesting.
like yeah, it's
Like relief almost.
yeah, like it's like I can rest now, and it's like it's your thing. Like it's we're giving it, like we're passing on the baton.
Interesting. No, that was not the vibe I was getting at all. That is interesting.
Yeah, I do want
Ooh.
to go back and find the chapter again.
Like to me, this was just like Rayleigh basically like being super triggered, like being like old wounds being like reopened,
Yeah.
and he's like, interesting.
I mean, could explain a lot. Could explain why they're both avid drinkers. They've just like they've turned to the drink.
to the glass, they have turned to
Yeah,
the glass. To the
yeah.
alcohol.
They just realize that there's no point anymore. Although, yeah, it's. I mean,
Well, because you could make the legitimate argument why didn't Rayleigh and the other Roger pirates do everything in their power to like take down the world government? Like, why not? Why specifically try to like groom Luffy into Joy Boy instead of,
But
like
wasn't that
helping
because
Dragon
of
or something?
Shirahoshi? Isn't that because
Hmm?
like Shirahoshi wasn't alive, like wasn't born yet, and so like they know because they were born the same year, like Luffy and Shirahoshi. So it's like
Yeah.
we need that third ancient weapon.
But then why not do something in between, right? Like in the meantime to like help the world. I do wonder
Mm,
if the reason is because they also like it if the answer is like, yeah, Emu is bad, but like at least Emu is doing something right now to, like clearly they know
prolong
that
the
the world is
world.
flooding. Like, is it like, oh yeah, I'm bad, but if I'm not around, like things will get even worse? Is that like the
Mm.
situation?
That's like that's an interesting point because yes, they potentially could have done more, even if they
When you
can't be the ones to
mm,
save the world.
when you think about it, it's also always been really weird to me. Like, there's no way the world government doesn't know that Rayleigh lives on Sabaody. And even if they didn't know, they did know after he like showed himself and fought Kizaru.
Yeah.
But clearly the government is not like interestingly enough, not worried whatsoever about like the second in command of Roger just like chilling. Like they're
But
it's
don't you
almost like the vibe
sometimes
to
feel
me.
like
Mm,
sometimes I get the feeling that the world government is actually a lot more incompetent than we realize.
incompetent.
Like I mean, it's the same thing with Luffy, right? Like okay, were they really that secure
Yeah.
that he was never going to awaken this Nika powers so that they just let
Mm.
him free? Like and also like okay, say you let him live to a certain point, then Marineford happens. Wouldn't that sort of like tick on some sort of alarm bells and go, actually, this kid has a lot more potential than we realize. He's awakened
Yeah.
Conqueror's Haki at a very young age. Like, he almost saved Ace. I think we need to step on it, guys. And they're like, nah, you know what? Just continue
It's
with
like
your
we're
journey.
good.
Go to the new world, like, by all means.
I mean, it's the same thing with like, and maybe it's just Oda there and that. I mean, maybe there's an explanation. I hope so. Or maybe it's
Hmm.
just literally, it's the same with the Holy Knights. Like, they're basically guaranteed to be these almost Yonko level characters, if not legitimately Yonko level characters.
Like,
It's
why were
like,
they not
why
mobilized?
why wouldn't you send this elite force of warriors everywhere to
Yeah.
like just eradicate people left and right? Um, yeah, especially if Emu can just teleport people randomly whatever wherever
Yeah.
they want to. It's like fast travel unlocked in One Piece finally.
You reckon
um
it's like a maybe? I think maybe for the for the Holy Knights, the only justification I can provide for that is that maybe they're supposed to be a lot more secret and they
around
don't
them,
want like they don't want the
people to
world
know.
to know about them. So like they're
Mm,
really kept hidden from the rest of the world because otherwise like why would you have relied on the Shichibukai system, like why ally yourself with pirates,
yeah,
like
yeah.
why
Why
rely on
not
people
send these
that are
broken characters
unreliable? Yeah.
wherever you
Yeah.
need to? Yeah. So that is like, I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get some answers to that. I feel like that is something like, because I feel like that would be like there would be no reason to introduce them now if like Oda I think hadn't thought about it. I at least hope. But yeah, I
Mm.
think my idea was kind of like, okay, I think incompetence could be like a fair argument. My other point would have been like, do the Gorosei and Emu, do they just know that Rayleigh will not talk about it because he can't do anything about it? And they're like almost like the vibe is almost like let him live with his with like the curse of knowledge almost. It's like that's a
Yeah.
bigger punishment than like taking him out.
Yeah, it's a like it made me think about that actually because it's like why do they treat it as a joke? It's like if we know that the world, like even either way, we know there's a lot at stake.
Like the world is like the world has been suffering like at during Joy Boy's time the world has been suffering, after Joy Boy's time the world has been
Yeah.
suffering, and like in the meantime the world is slowly like sinking under the ocean. I'm like, can it actually like, and if Oda pulls something off or I'm like this is like legit like positively like I need to laugh because this is such a great thing, like I will,
Mm.
as I do all the time anyways, pull my head like, but it just feels like with all the context clues that we have that the truth is going to be really dark and messed up, And so I just don't see like the reaction being like a genuine like, especially what we talked about earlier. We're like, if the joke had been like, oh, you know, because Roger even says, "I wish I could have lived in your era," and then like my mind always went to the point like, oh, you know, he talks about the Void Century and how everything was peaceful and it was this paradise, but we now know that that was just straight up not the case. Like it was one of the worst times to be, like it was almost worse than after the Void Century, before the Void Century, because at least now only the Celestial Dragons get to have slaves, but before that everyone had slaves. so so I'm like, can't be that like the world was like super awesome.
Yeah, like this
during Joy
paradise.
Boy's time. Yeah.
I think a lot of that goes back to the idea of the ancient kingdom almost being like this Atlantis, because I
Like
think in
standout
Plato's
civilization.
story, yeah, well, it's like it's a standout civilization that is almost a utopia, but then isn't.
I think it fits really well also because I always in my head like I thought that Wano and Elbaf and Shandora, they all like my headcanon was always that they were part of the ancient kingdom themselves. Like they weren't just allied, that they were part of the kingdom. Which I think now that you bring up Plato and Atlantis, like I never thought about it that way, but it makes a lot of sense because Plato describes Atlantis as 10 kingdoms, I think. You know, that with like one centerpiece, like there is like an actual like this like what people think about this like city. But Plato I think describes Atlantis as 10 kingdoms around the globe that form this like empire almost. So Atlantis isn't just one city or one island, but it's actually multiple kingdoms that form this like big kingdom. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, you should look into it.
Yeah, because the way that I understood it was that it's like it is this one island, but then I know there have been other theories that have come about since Plato that have said like the people who survived the great flooding then went on to spread their wisdom, and that's how like you get these other
Yes.
great kingdoms, which is like which would be very similar to what we see now with like Shandora and
There's both. There's both. So I think the myth goes that both you have survivors of Atlantis and then reseed civilization basically in like different parts of the world. But you also do like Atlantis itself is described because Plato gets the Atlantis story. I'm not sure if you know this. He gets this from his, I think it's like his ancestor.
yeah, like his great uncle
Solon.
or something.
Yeah, Solon. And Solon got it because he went to Egypt and talked to the priests there, and the priests tell them that basically, you know, the Greeks are so young and that they like the Greeks have lost their memory where they actually come from. And he basically explains that Egypt also like their predecessors were Atlantis, and you know that it was like these 10 kingdoms that all. I'm gonna quickly fact check how many I think it was 10. How many kingdoms was Atlantis? 7. Sorry, my bad. 7 kingdoms. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
It's really interesting. Yeah. It's worth reading Plato. There's like interesting stuff there. It's like the one takeaway from this podcast, I guess.
Plato rocks.
Plato rocks.
I mean, I think, like, obviously we laugh, but I think there is some truth in that Oda definitely knows a lot of great writers. He knows a lot about, or he cares a lot about philosophy and history.
I'm gonna interject again. Like the 7 Kingdoms was from the DC Aquaman movie. Plato says that Atlantis was divided into 10 provinces, each ruled by a pair of rulers, and then there was like this like central city, this like capital almost. Which again, I feel like makes sense like in the One Piece world where you like maybe have like you know Laugh Tale could be like that capital city, but then Elbaf and Wano and Shandora were actually also part of it, like this like seafaring empire, this pirates or seafaring, you know, kingdom. I feel like the pirate kingdom almost doesn't make sense. So like that, I love that theory in the past, but I feel like it doesn't make as much sense anymore because I'm not sure if you agree. Like my mind goes to the fact that Joygirl was actually born in the ancient kingdom, and then he became the first pirate. So like to me, it wouldn't make sense that
because he was the first pirate, and he's known as Joy Boy of the Ancient Kingdom. I think those were sort of the words that Vegapunk used. Something that I haven't that I've been meaning to do, and I've done it sort of loosely, but haven't like sat down and really like gotten into the details yet, is like actually re-looking at the map of the One Piece world, or of the known One
Mm.
Piece world, because Vegapunk also says that all the islands that exist now are like one continent, right? It's like
Or like
one continent.
mountaintops, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, of one
Yeah.
continent. So it's like that blows like our entire concept of the One Piece map like out of the water, because it must mean like the map like expands so much greater.
All right, Sophie
Yeah,
back
how to
with
level up.
the upgraded ear equipment. Level up
Yeah,
for real.
I feel like
you look
it
like a
too.
real gamer girl now. Yeah, I'm gonna play some Fortnite later. Wait, what
We were talking about the massive world of One Piece because everything we know is only on one continent.
Yes. Oh, yes. All right. I like idea for you. Randomly, gonna throw it out there. What do you think about the idea that the Grand Line was the original red line, but then when the world flooded too much, they made a new red line because the old one was already flooded, and they just kind of like keep stacking stuff on
Okay,
top.
so like you mean underneath what we now know as the Grand Line, there is like almost this like it is actually a continent that encircles.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
the other way around.
Hmm.
Because it's like weird that they're like
I mean,
exactly
that's
at 90
that's also what I
degrees
mean, is
to
that
each
it's
other.
weird that how did all the lands I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to like I'm gonna have to get
Also, you know what the red line reminds me of sometimes? Do you remember that weird ring that was levitating around the egg? Like the lava's
yes.
face on Egghead Island? Like I was almost like, it almost looks like the red line is like that, but like collapsed almost. Like it was like maybe this ring that was floating around the One Piece planet
Oh.
that then collapsed in on
Yeah,
itself.
I mean, could be. We've got like gravitational powers from Fujitora,
Mm.
so could have broken it down.
Yeah.
Could have been.
There is definitely
I
some
think,
weird
like, I
stuff
mean, I
going
think it
on here,
just
for sure.
makes you like wonder if we know that the world is a circle. And we know that there's these two like
The
axes, and we've seen like lands in. How can that be one continent? Yeah, well, I mean, it's
Oh,
like,
you mean like
I mean,
the
like,
X?
so say this is the Grand Line, and say this is like the Red Line, and we have like each of the
Yeah.
four blues,
Yeah.
and like if these lines are like both encircling the world, like what is like what like. Yeah,
Yeah,
so like it's like
like a
it's
big
almost as
net.
if this one continent that is the only continent that has survived is like the big Gondwana that is
Yeah.
already a mass of all the worlds anyways. Like where are these other continents?
Yeah. That's true. I do wonder like if they're not artificial, right? Like my idea was more like that there originally was just one red line, which then with the rising sea levels got swallowed by the sea, turned into islands. It's turned into the Grand Line, and then because they like whoever established the red line needed, they needed lands, so they established a new red line on top of it, basically.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I'm not sure if that makes sense, but it just feels weird. Like it almost feels like the Grand Line and the Red Line, they're like obviously related in some way or form. So either they were like created together, but clearly like again, they like, as you say, like the Grand Line used to be not just islands, it used to be like a lot of land. Like we don't know if it was actually one big continent like the Red Line, but at least there was a lot more land in the Grand Line, right? That's what we know. So it almost feels like, I wonder if they're like V1, V2 of the same thing potentially.
Like this failed. So, or like going back to what you were originally saying, like if the Lunarians did that, like created the Grand Line, then the Ancient Kingdom did the Red Line, or Imu and the Celestial Dragons, yes, like the 20 Kingdoms did the Red Line.
Something like that.
Yeah. Like, look, I think geography is never my strong point anyways. And I already get like
Yeah.
confused the hell out whenever I look at the One Piece map. So like getting this information like really
This-
screwed with me, and like it takes me like 5 business days to like process it, and I think I got it, and then like something else happens,
Process
and
it.
I'm like, no, I don't understand it again.
Oh no. Yeah, I mean, I think that a really weird thing about the red line in general is we know nothing about, like, for all that we know, like, I think everyone has this image that it's just a piece of rock, and like somewhere on like a tiny little scrap of it, there is just this like
Mm.
city, this like, Merijoa and like the Holy Land. But like I think none of us really knows, is there like, are there other, because that is like what, 0.001%
Yeah.
of the entire like area that's available on the red line. So was the point of the red line that, like, was it originally potentially created to like
From the
save all the
flooding.
world's
Mm.
population and like have them evacuate onto the red line, or are there other countries just on the red line that we don't know about? Like, or is it just literally a big piece of rock with like a tiny little piece that's like a country?
Yeah,
Like,
and at the same
I'm so curious
time,
about that.
like, if, like, is that the only area that's, because it's not even habitable. Like, it's not, like, you can't.
We don't know, but I don't think we've ever seen any part of the red
Yeah,
line, right? That's
exactly.
not Merijo, as far as I know. Like, we only ever see the walls.
Um,
Yeah.
and like, in that
Like,
case, why did they
for all we
have
know,
to
there could
kick
be
the
like
Lunarians
entire.
out of that part of the red line? Like, is it because the Sunlight
Yeah.
Tree Eve is there? Because we know Fishman Island is like right beneath
Mm.
Marijoa, right? Which means that must mean the Sunlight
Yes,
Tree sort of
exactly.
tops out at Marijoa. And so like, I mean, yeah, so like, is that why they
Probably, yeah.
had to choose there? Maybe if you feel like the red line is like this inhospitable place, then they need the tree for oxygen. They need that tree as sort of like a source of life, and that's the only place that you can actually survive on the red line. Because like the red line would also be like almost in another, I don't know, stratosphere.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as isn't. How tall is it? Is it 10,000 meters from the sea, or is it 10,000? Is it 10,000 meters from? So it's 10,000
I thought it was
meters
from surface
from
level, yeah.
the sea
Oh,
level
I
down to
thought it was
Fishman
the other
Island,
way
right?
around. I thought it was like 10, I mean, as in like, I thought it was 10,000 meters above sea level. So like, we don't know how deep it is.
And then 10,000 meters down. I feel like we know about how deep Fishman Island is, though, right? Which
Do
is
we know
under the
how
red
deep
line,
the
no?
Fishman?
How deep is? I feel like it was 10,000 meters.
Okay.
Fishman Island is 10,000 meters below the sea level, yeah. So in theory, that means the red line is 20,000 meters?
Actually, we don't know how tall the red line is. I remember trying to do the maths of this, because I tried to do the maths
Yeah.
where I saw like, we saw a comparison of like a little ship in comparison, and so you could say that when you like think about stacking the ships on top of each other, then you could get to like a rough 8 kilometers. But then even then people said I was wrong, because I wasn't thinking about how big, like how much of the ship was underwater.
Yeah. I do remember, like, it was stated at some point that doesn't the red line
Yeah,
have its
it
own
does.
like weird sections, like winter, summer, spring, fall islands, which again is weird because that concept doesn't really exist in like the east, or does. Okay, this is where my geography One Piece knowledge probably runs out. In the East Blue, for example, are there winter, summer, spring, fall islands, or is it, as far as I know, it's just regular old islands with like regular old seasons? No.
That has
And then
the
it's the Grand
weird,
Line that's
yeah.
special with like the different islands. So if the red line has the same thing, wouldn't that kind of let
They're
credence
both,
to the
they're
fact
like
that,
version
that
2
they're
of
like the
each
same
other.
thing? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back into
It's
this.
really weird.
Yeah, gonna have to go back,
It's like really
look at all of this
confusing.
again.
Yeah. I feel like there is in general something really, really weird and wrong with
You
the One
like
Piece.
geography? Yeah.
Like again, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, one cool. I keep bringing this up. One cool idea that one of my team members had was they were saying like, "Oh, what if the One Piece world is actually just a big Dyson sphere?"
A what? Sorry.
A Dyson sphere. Do you know what a
No,
Dyson
I
sphere is?
don't.
So there is something called the Kardashev scale, which like ranks civilizations, and like it ranks civilizations by how much energy output they have. So for example, humans would be like between 0 and 1, where 1 would be a civilization that can harness like their planet's power completely.
Okay.
Like we have like complete control over the planet's power. And like a second level civilization would have complete control over their star, and that they could do that. Basically, the ideas of a Dyson sphere is building a megastructure around a star like the sun and harvesting all its energy.
I think I sort of saw this in a Netflix TV series recently, like the Three Body Problem.
Potentially, yeah. Oh yeah, I think it has. I haven't seen it yet, but I think like I wouldn't be surprised if that has Dyson spheres in it. Yeah. And so the idea could be that potentially like we have this weird model of the Ohara, like on Ohara, right, with like the One Piece planet and like is it moons?
Yeah.
But it would be interesting, or like I think some people have speculated, oh, is it just a like not a heliocentric but like a geocentric worldview, right? Where like, oh, they think that the
planets are
revolve
circling
around the
them.
Earth.
Yep.
But what if the One Piece world is actually a star where like someone built a shell around it to harm, and like the moon, and like it's actually like planets. And I feel like a bunch of people have made videos also like that the One Piece world is weirdly large. Like it's like potentially way bigger
Yeah.
than our real world. So it would make sense if it's actually
A
a
star.
star where there's a shell around it, you know, which would then potentially be like the actual mother flame because it's like an actual star powering all this stuff. Yeah. And then you have like what we think is the moon is actually like planets.
Yeah, so
which like orbiting.
like which is why there were like moon civilizations, because they're actual planets.
Yeah.
That's
so I don't know. I don't know if I have enough evidence for it, but it would be interesting, and it would like at least explain why there is like weird stuff going on with like with like the red line and grand line,
and like why the seasons can be manipulated in that way, because it's like in that sense, like the entire world is artificial.
Yeah, and again, like when you look at like art renders of like Dyson spheres, it's always these like they have like the weird Dyson sphere. They have like sometimes they have like depicted with like the weird rings around it, basically exactly kind of like the so right. it looks kind of like,
and like in that sense it sort of explains things like island clouds, sea clouds, and all of these special stones, because it's like they're all just technology. It's not a weird like magical kink of the One Piece universe. It's literally artificial technology
that creates everything is like So I mean, again, just a bit of a wild one, but I personally like think it's like a cool idea that potentially, you know, like this is like everything, like not like the one idea is okay, this was a regular old planet and someone started doing stuff with it, but like in that case it would literally be like the entire structure is just artificial from the beginning.
And like it goes back to that idea about the Lunarians having to escape their like planet with limited resources and needing to colonize. And
I think it would be interesting even if you thought about it more from the sense like, what if the One Piece world was flooding because you need to cool that star and keep it from destroying the planet or something.
So it's almost like you're doing a necessary evil by flooding it and keeping it cool.
Yeah, because otherwise it expands.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like now I'm just really spitballing.
Climate change is good.
But it's like oh, if we don't keep flooding the planet, then like the star is just gonna burst and like the entire world is just gonna go to pieces.
And this is why Vegapunk can't decide who was right or wrong, because it's like, are you committing mass murder, or is that just the lesser of two evils?
Is that the lesser of two evils? Could be interesting where like Luffy as the sun god potentially like needs to contain the sun or something. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, now we're like really out in some really wild territory. That was like always fun thinking about stuff like that. Speaking of like, let's move to some lighter stuff. What are your let's move a little bit into your predictions. I want to spend some time on that. Like big predictions, things that you want to see in 2025, things that you think we're going to see in 2025, and things that you're just excited about.
Okay. So one of my biggest predictions was that Loki one that we discussed earlier. So that was my big prediction about Loki and Elbaf. Otherwise, I
Do you
think
want
it's
Loki to join the Straw Hats?
I don't know necessarily about joining the Straw Hats, but I think he'll definitely be a companion, right? Like
I'd be so happy.
he's gonna join to like he's gonna fight on Luffy's side for the war, and he's gonna be I don't know fighting one of the God's Knights or something. The Holy
He would
Knights.
just instantly, yeah, he would like instantly demote Zoro to like second coolest.
And then like our concept of the monster trio just like keeps getting more and more
Yeah.
warped.
And then there is the giant Solo and the
Yeah.
monster trio.
It'll be like the solar trio. And
Yep.
yeah, we're gonna have to rethink all of our little concepts. Otherwise, like probably the more like classic ones, you know, Usopp getting some sort of power up or getting like some sort of moment at Elbaf. I'm like this is a bit more of a short term thing, but I really would like to just see the feast because we haven't seen the feast yet, and I would finally like the feast. So I feel like that's something that will happen either in the next 5 chapters, or it's just not going to happen at all because like shit just keeps getting crazier and crazier, and it's like, you know, terrible thing after terrible thing. So I'd like to see that. I'm really keen to see like more of the Norse mythology just like keep coming and coming. I think we've had like such a nice dive in already. But I love more of that. Which is also interesting because I feel like the sun in Norse mythology, or at least the sun god or the sun goddess, like Sol, doesn't actually play such a like not as a big a role in Norse mythology,
in
right?
Norse mythology, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting that obviously like Elbaf's main sort of if they even have a pantheon seems to revolve around this sun god. So I was actually thinking like it could go back to the fact that it's I think sun god plays a much bigger role in Egyptian mythology and Egypt, like ancient Egyptian
Ra.
religion. Yeah, like Ra being like the main god. And so I think that's quite interesting when you know that obviously Egypt is sort of the basis of Arabasta that like Norse mythology is for Elbaf.
That's
in
true,
which
yeah.
case like you could see like the marrying of the two cultures and like why do they have these like shared beliefs, and it could be because of
You do have Amaterasu also for like Wano and like the Japanese pantheon also.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting.
And then knowing that all
We
of these are
haven't-
allies, because even I think in Mayan religion, the I can't remember the name of the god, but the sun god plays quite a big role in Mayan ancient religion as well.
Is
so
it Quetzalcoatl?
I
I'm not
think
100% sure.
might be the case.
Mayan sun god. Oh no, never mind. It's Kinit
Yeah,
Ahau.
Kinichi Ahau. Yeah.
Kinit Ahau.
In either case, I feel like in all of these sort of ancient cultures that Oda has been like heavily inspired from, the sun god, up to the exception of like Elbaf, does play quite a major role. So it'd be interesting to see like if that also plays a part in explaining the relationship between these so-called allies of Joy Boy. So that's something I'm really looking forward to seeing. And then otherwise I would really like to see like just classic shenaniganry from the Straw Hats. Just because we're like getting sort of a like lots of callback to Little Garden. I feel like, you know, that's where Zoro and Sanji's dynamic really got solidified, and that whole like rivalry was like really came into force. So I'd love to see them like get into similar things like that here, just because I feel like, you know, post time skip we've lost some of that little crew magic. So I'd like to see that.
I think in general, like, I mean, Robin is like a great step in the right direction. I feel like characters like especially I feel like the post Grand Line characters in the Straw Hat crew have been like very severely neglected, like Brooke, Chopper, and Frankie. Like Robin up to this point too, but now obviously she had like a lot more luckily character moments. But yeah, Chopper, Frankie, and Brooke. I mean, I think I said this recently in the video, and sounds very harsh, but I'm like, if these characters, like, if all three hadn't been with Luffy, would things really have turned out that differently after the time skip? Like, Brook stole the road
No,
poneglyph, I
but
guess,
like
from
yeah,
Big Mom.
Brook was an MVP of Whole Cake Island.
But just because of that one moment, it's not like we got like some crazy character development from it or anything. So, like, I'm just like, I understand that with like the big cast of characters and everything that's going on, you can't focus on everyone. But at the same time, these are like some of our main characters, obviously. So I'd love to see a bit more for them.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
From them, I think.
But at the
I
same
feel like
time,
Zoro and Sanji have been getting like pretty good treatment recently.
I think so too. Like Zoro got huge moments at Wano, and like Sanji got I think got respectable nods at Egghead. At the same time, though, I'm not entirely convinced that Brook, Chopper, and Frankie are gonna get their shining moments at Elbaf. Like, you look at Elbaf and you think more of Usopp, right?
True.
Maybe Frankie, if he continues like the tech, like maybe if he gets inspired by whatever's going on at Elbaf and decides like he's going to incorporate this into his sort of inventions. But like surprisingly, the place that we would have expected him to do so would have been at Egghead, right? And that didn't happen.
Yeah, Frankie, like, was Frankie even there?
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
kidding,
yeah. I mean, like, he got a good moment as well, but like one at Elbaf.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he never got that massive power
That's
up
true.
that we would have expected him to. And maybe he did, and we just don't know about it.
I think him and Vegapunk also did they. I think they never had like this conversation. Also, hey, by the way, I like spent 2 years studying your tech.
No,
and
exactly.
Stuff, right? Yeah.
So like, I guess that's a thing that we might see between Lilith.
That's something I kind of would have loved to see Frankie showing off like his tech to Vegapunk.
Or just like even like fanboying, like.
Or like even like from like some recognition from Vegapunk that Frankie turned himself into a cyborg.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Or like
as a
even say
kid.
like, oh, I heard that, you know, like being the greatest scientist. It's like, oh, I like recognize this, or like I heard that you spent some time at my island. Would have been it's almost like it's almost odd that we didn't get some sort of acknowledgement.
True. Do you buy into the whole Queen as Frankie's dad?
Oh, I don't know, because I sometimes feel like when Oda adds these information in the SBS, he tends to be a little bit more like
cheeky.
No, I actually think he's a little bit more blatant about it. Like what he said about Kizaru. Like, he didn't outright say it, but there's no mistaking what he meant about, you know, about him having delivered food to Luffy. Whereas with the, like, Queen and Frankie, I think requires a little bit more, like, fan insertion.
I understand what you're saying, yeah. I think I get your point. Yeah.
Like, that being said, I like the idea. I think it's fun.
I'm like, this is me being like maybe too anime about it. I'm always really looking at hair colors, especially with like Zoro and Hiyori in the end, like them actually both being from Wano and being kind of like I mean, probably very distantly, but like there was like a color scheme thing actually happening with their hair. So I'm like, Frankie blue hair. I'm like, who like, you know, like we have like the Vivi thing. I'm like, do the hair color, like even Nami, orange hair, like do hair colors matter potentially here?
I mean, hair color does matter though, right? Because we had Tama and Orochi, and they both had purple, and it was like it hella mattered.
So I'm just wondering, and we do like, what was that comment that, you know, Frankie's parents were pirates that abandoned him or something, like big pirates? Like for both Frankie and for Nami, I'm still wondering if we're going to get some interesting reveals about their lineage or not. I can still see it happening potentially.
I'm also like, I'm leaning towards yes, I think we will. And maybe it won't be in series, but it will be like adjacent, similar to the way that we got Zoro's. Like, I don't think it'll be
Again, the Zoro thing was so confusing to me with all the sidetracking that we spent doing in Wano. Just like putting that into the SBS was like really interesting. I was like, you're telling me Oda didn't find in like the 130 chapters that we got of Wano, you didn't find one moment where someone was like, "Oh, you look like."
But they did, right? There was a moment where
I
he
think someone
said,
said it.
yeah, like he
Yeah.
looks like it's an uncanny resemblance or whatever.
Yeah, something like
But
that.
yeah, like
Yeah,
it wasn't more like definitely wasn't like more strongly spelt out. But that's what I mean as well.
Hmm.
Like in the SBS, he gave us an entire family tree. So I feel like when Oda's like wants to tell us something, he's quite blatant about it. And so
Direct with it, yeah.
so for him to, I don't know, the Queen and Frankie thing, I'm still like, oh, like could be fun, might not be.
I personally hope it's not true. I'd rather have Frankie's parents be someone else.
And like
But
have them
if
be
it's true, it's
more
true.
important, or like have them be a little bit
Yeah,
more
I
tied
feel
to
like
the
Queen
law.
is just such a letdown. Like a reveal if that's true.
But they're both like, they do definitely have that like funky
They have a
personality.
resemblance.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's
Yeah.
there. I'd still prefer it not to
Yeah,
be the
okay.
case, but I can see it. I can see it for sure.
No, I get where you're coming from. I mean, I think I also would like both Nami and Frankie's like parents to be a little bit more tied into the rest of the story.
Yeah, I remember there was like a really prevalent theory for a while that Nami might be Big Mom's daughter.
Oh,
Which
really?
Oh yeah, have you never heard this?
No,
Oh yeah,
I
with like
haven't.
all her like getting along with Lola and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And
wow, okay. No, I didn't hear that.
I'm really curious, really where Belmare found Nami and all that stuff. Really curious about that. I
Mm.
think it was in the East Blue though, as far as I remember. Do we get comfort? Like, do we know if that was an East Blue Island, or do we just know that it was? Because I think we got a name.
Yeah, I remember.
Um,
I vaguely remember finding like a name, but I don't remember.
Konomi
Oh, it
Islands.
It was an East Blue Island.
East Blue, yeah.
Yeah, Oikot.
Konomi Islands. Also, it is. Wait, is that?
No, Oikot.
No, the Konomi Islands are where she grew up. That is
Yeah.
where Kokoyashi Village is. No, we had a name.
The Oikot Kingdom.
Oikot.
Yeah.
Do we know where that is? It says is a country in the East Blue. Do we know that? I'm not I feel like I looked it up at some point, and I feel like I remember that it wasn't confirmed that it was in the East Blue. Oikot is Tokyo spelled backwards. That's actually interesting.
That just clicked to me. Oh my god. Oh, but I think it's only because of the live action. In which case, it might not be the case.
It might not be canon. Yeah, I looked up the references right now. It's from a live action thing.
Yeah.
So for all we know, this could be somewhere in the new, like in the Grand Line or in the New World, even.
Or yeah.
I'm very curious about that. I feel like there's like some interesting stuff happening there. At the same time, I will say if Belmare was a Marine who was active in the New World and whatnot, I'm like, then she probably shouldn't have lost to Arlong. But then early One Piece power scaling also.
Yeah, it's like vastly different.
Yeah, I'd be like that'd be kind of interesting. Like even like the Marines active in the New World, where I guess there aren't that many to begin with, obviously. But like let's say like the like average low ranking Marines active in the Grand Line, like I guess they're not particularly strong to begin with.
No, because they're just foot soldiers, right?
Yeah.
They're just there to, like, it's really the captains
just there
that...
so like we can get some cool spreads of.
Yeah, of like no one at Egghead did anything. Like they get wiped out first when Saturn arrives. They
like
just
fodder.
like have zero willpower. Yeah.
Yeah. Zero willpower. So like Shanks sneezes and they collapse.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh god. Yeah, I feel like that's why I really like the fan letter animation, because it kind of gave you this like insight, you know, where you're like, oh yeah, right, all these characters that we're so used to, they're like absolute monsters, you know, compared to like the average citizen.
Yeah, like puts it into perspective. And I had no idea what the fan letter, like what the premise was. I saw like a glimpse of, I think I don't even know if there was a trailer or if there was a teaser. I must have seen some sort of material where I knew that it wasn't like going to be focused on the main characters. So it's not like a, you know, typical One Piece movie. But because of the title, I thought that it was like set in our real world about a girl who's like who's like a fan of One Piece as a series and is like thanking what the series has meant for the fans' life. And so it was a really pleasant surprise to witness the world of One Piece like from one of the civilians who actually live in that world.
Even seeing like the like Marineford from the average Marine's perspective was like really powerful, I felt.
Yeah.
Because you kind of like, you're like, oh yeah, Whitebeard fighting Crocodile and Mihawk fighting Jozo, and then you just have like the
it's
people
like,
in
oh my
between who are
God.
like, what
Yeah.
the hell
Just
is
like
going
getting
on right
blown
now?
away like left, right, and
Yeah,
center. And then like
literally having no impact on this battle whatsoever.
and like but then also like the fact that they do have lives and they have their own story, and it was like super touching. I think it's like it gave me very much Film Z films, and Film Z is still my favorite One Piece film. So I think
I think that was really cool, and I feel like stuff like that is always, again, as much as I enjoy certain One Piece movies, and even Film Red I thought was really fun, but like if you gave me like the fan letter as like a movie, and it's just we see like a character living through like the Marineford saga from like Sabaody to whatnot, I would rewatch that. Like I would go to the cinema like 8 times, right? I'd do like what Arthur did for Film Red and just go to the cinema every single day. Just give me like it's so easy. Also, there's like so many interesting things in the One Piece world where you can create like these fantastic, like tell these little side stories that just I think people would devour gladly. You know, like things from that character's perspective, or we get like a bit of a backstory for, you know, Crocodile or whoever really, right? And like see stuff from their end would be so good.
I mean, I think we've discussed this like multiple times on our Blue Banana. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, because it's like we already have like the Ace novels that exist as well. Like, why not make a film out of that?
We're getting Law and
we're getting, like, Zoro.
There's gonna be the Zoro Law, how they get their swords. Yeah, make that into a.
Yeah.
I'm dying to see it on screen. Really. Yeah. It's so funny. Like that just kind of reminded me. Have you been watching Dan Dan Dan?
No, I haven't, but it's on my list. It is on my list to watch.
You should. It's basically all the One Piece voice actors.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Like the main, like the ghost is Luffy, which is hilarious because you just can't unhear it.
Yeah.
It's just Luffy, and then like the aliens are all voiced by Zoro. It's super funny. It's super fun. Yeah. I also watched like another show recently. It's like a Japanese, like it's like do you know Terrace House?
Yes.
So it's like this dating show, but it's like it's called Love Village, and it's like people from 35 to like 60 that are looking to find like love, and they like renovate this like abandoned house together and live together, and it's really hilarious because the narrator is just Law's voice actor, and he's just commenting on it in like the most satirical, like he's just like it's absolutely hilarious. I strongly recommend it if people haven't watched it.
That's something I really miss about the Blue Banana podcast, was that it forced me to watch new anime like constantly, whereas like without that I haven't like had the time to. Something I've been really trying to get back into is reading Sakamoto Days, because
so good. And is also really good.
And the anime's coming out, right?
Yes, it is. It's coming soon. Also, if you want a really good, so I still can't believe that this is a shonen manga. It's also an anime now. Have you read Blue Box?
No.
Oh, read it or watch it. It's like an anime now. It's so good. It's kind of like, imagine Haikyuu, but the focus is like 70% on the romance. Like it feels like a shoujo. It feels like a shoujo manga, but it's in Shonen Jump, and it's like really good. It's insanely good.
Blue Box.
Blue Box. I mean, Blue Lock also very good.
I remember Blue Lock. I wasn't sold by Blue Lock, but okay, I'll check out Blue Box. Pleasure. It's a shonen.
Blue Box, really good. Yeah, but it's basically, it reads like a shoujo, but it's really good. It's like genuinely a really good like romance / shonen thing that's happening.
Okay, that's interesting.
Any other topics that you wanted to discuss, Sophie, that you wanted to get off your heart?
Get off my heart.
One Piece related or not?
One Piece related. Well, I mean, just first of all, thank you so much for having me because, like I said, I have missed just getting to obviously
For
getting
real.
to having to watch these animes and like immerse myself in the world of Japanese media, but also I've missed talking to people and obviously talking to you and Liam on a weekly basis was something that like became a monthly basis towards the end, but still on like a frequent basis was like an outlet where you could just discuss like everything. So I'm really
Yeah,
glad
talking
that we
out.
got that chance. And I'm looking forward to seeing the future of this sake podcast.
Me too. Let's see how long I do it consistently. Do you have any plans to come back to Japan next year, or?
I heard that there is something happening I can't remember what it was, but in 2025 there was some like crazy, maybe it was like new show at Universal or something, or like a new installation at the Universal Studios. So I missed out on like all the good things that happened in 2024 when it was like the
Oh
big
no.
like they were having like the crazy One Piece Day festivals
Yeah.
I think because I left in April, was it? Or early May? I can't exactly
Yeah.
remember. I even
It's been a
remember
while.
going to GU, which is like Uniqlo's sister store.
Yeah, they have good stuff. I actually got some stuff from them recently too. Yeah.
Well, I remember like I was there shopping and then I saw all of these like placards of like of Luffy and the Straw Hats and I was like, "Oh, cool, they have like new One Piece shirts." And then it was
Yeah.
only coming out like for One Piece Day and I was like,
Oh
"No!"
no. I'm trying to remember when you were there. It was probably not like super warm also, right?
It
Because
was
I remember it was still
cold.
like pretty cold. Yeah.
Yeah, it
So it
was
must have been
cold.
like April or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was spring when I thought that spring would be warmer.
Yeah,
But
you
it
were not
wasn't.
adequately clothed
No. I
at
was
all.
I brought shorts. I brought swimmers.
Oh,
And it was
you
not
never know.
swimming
Never
weather.
know. Jump into the Tokyo Bay.
Yeah.
Well, if you're coming next year, we definitely like got to do this in person. Otherwise, we're
Yeah,
gonna do it
let's
online again.
yeah, well,
Nice.
and how about you? Anything that you need to get off your chest?
One Piece wise, no, I like this was great. I think I got to talk about One Piece being a shell around a star, so I'm like as happy as can be.
Yeah, Dyson Sphere, something
I'm
I've
like
never
slowly.
heard about as well. I was like,
Oh yeah.
the hair dryer? Is
Exactly.
it a new
Yeah.
hair
That's
accessory?
exactly what it is. But no, thank you so much for coming on. Can you tell the good people, I'm obviously going to have everything in the description below, but tell the good people where they can find you and your content.
You can find me on YouTube under Joygirl, and you can also find me under Joygirl on Instagram. It might actually be Joygirl YT, but you know what? If you come to my channel, I'll have all the links ready for you. So come check me out for just fun One Piece discussions. One Piece discussions that I just had with Manu, but I'm having solo, but with you through the
With you,
camera.
it's an intimate experience, yes. I'm like, since you named yourself Joygirl, I guess the name Nico is still open now for the One Piece community.
Actually, something that I think happened after we saw each other in Japan was that Joygirl became canonized in the series. That was big. Joygirl was
That is
canonized in the series.
That is true.
So
you're nice. You named yourself after Miner, I guess. Nice. Good move.
Oh crap! I walked into that one.
Anyways, thank you so much for joining, Sophie. Always a pleasure, never a chore.
Oh, thank you.
Always a good time hanging out. And yeah, everyone, please go check out Sophie's stuff everywhere. If you enjoy the podcast, please let me know by leaving a like, letting me know in the comments.
And subscribe. Yeah. Subscribe to his channel. Go check out his Tanuki Tales.
Do check. I'm just gonna let you do the plugs now.
Go check out his Tanuki Tales. Go check out his Japan vlog. Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
Become a member. Do all the things.
All the things.
Yeah.
All right. See you soon.